Chapter 722. Lin Feng used a creation divine light crystal to stop the white light produced by Venerable Gui Shui's talisman, not only to cut off its way, but also to keep the white light. After the black and white divine light was released, the white light produced by the talisman would play its role again. Lin Feng himself stepped on the white light and was taken to Yingxi, one of the 7 Cs of Tianyuan. This white light talisman secret technique seems to be a rather unique receiving technique, even though it can only teleport in one direction, and it's a one-time use, but to be able to break through the power of realms, it really is extraordinary. Lin Feng pondered in his heart. I only hope that my previous guess was wrong. While thinking, Lin Feng had entered a misty foreign space with the white light. The white light gradually dissipated and was about to disappear, but Lin Feng still didn't let it go. He made a gesture and shouted, "Fix!" Clouds of purple gas gushed out and fixed the white light that had turned into faint light spots again. The white light kept twisting in the purple gas mass, and finally was stained with a layer of purple, turning into a purple light as thin as a needle. The purple light was like a swimming fish, constantly swimming and twisting in the purple gas mass. Lin Feng changed his gesture again. Guide! The purple light suddenly flew out like an arrow and plunged into a hazy white smoke cloud. Lin Feng immediately followed it, falling behind the purple light arrow and flying over the misty sea. At this time, Lin Feng had the time to carefully look at the environment around him. The sea below looked similar to the East Sea, but the spiritual energy here was richer and more chaotic. The white smoke above the sea filled the whole world. It seemed that the entire Yingxi was filled with such clouds. This huge foreign space was divided into 2 parts by the sea and the smoke. Yingxi and the void battlefield known as the Empty Sea were both famous dangerous places in the Tianyuan world. However, compared with the complicated space turbulence of the void battlefield, the environment in Yingxi looked much more peaceful. However, this was only a superficial phenomenon. At the very least, Lin Feng could be sure that whether it was the ubiquitous white smoke on the surface of the sea or the seemingly calm sea below, there was a huge hidden danger. Lin Feng's divine sense could only explore a very limited area. He didn't dare to go too deep. Once he did, he would be surrounded by illusions. In the yin and yang life and death formation, there was the change of illusion and reality. Lin Feng had mastered the 2 treasures, the Yuanshan ancient skin and the sky illuminating stone, so he was very accomplished in comprehending the change of illusion and reality, far surpassing most people. But even he would get lost in the illusion if he wasn't careful in the Ying Ocean. The Sanctuary Ocean was also known as the Mirage Ocean. After experiencing it for himself today, Lin Feng knew that it lived up to its name. It was no wonder that many Essence Soul Realm experts would die here. The illusory realm here vividly displayed the transformation between reality and illusion. It was said to be an illusory realm, but if one were to really fall into it, then the transformation between reality and illusion, or the transformation between illusion and illusion, or the transformation between illusion and illusion, was extremely normal. The danger and death in the illusory realm could become real at any time. Compared to the violent, chaotic, and unpredictable void battlefield, where the dangers were still on the surface, the dangers lurking in the dark in the Ying Ocean were even more perilous. However, the huge danger was also accompanied by a huge amount of resources and opportunities. Like the void battlefield, there were many unique treasures here. Many treasures that were hard to find in the outside Tianyuan world were produced in an astonishing amount here. Hence, it attracted a large number of cultivators to come here, just like how they came to the void battlefield to hunt for treasures. Unlike the chaotic space in the void battlefield, the Sanctuary Ocean and the Divine Land were very stable. The entrance of the Sanctuary Ocean was also fixed in the center of the East Sea. Hence, the number of cultivators who came here to hunt for treasures was even more than those who entered the void battlefield. Of course, there were also more cultivators who died here. However, there were still many people who flocked to it. Apart from the most mysterious Dead Sea, there were countless legends about the 7 seas of Tianyuan. At the same time, they were also the few richest treasure troves in the Tianyuan world. It was also because of this that the appearance of the 3 mountains of the Sanctuary Ocean attracted the attention of the world. If one could completely control them, One could ignore the various dangers in the sanctuary ocean and take whatever treasures they wanted. This was a great temptation for anyone. Lin Feng was no exception. At least in the short amount of time he spent on the road, he had already seen quite a few good things. Among the white clouds, there were a few dazzling lights that flew across the clouds from time to time. Looking closely, they were pieces of white crystals. However, what was unusual was that there was a pair of wings made of flowing lights on each of the white crystals. The wings were flapping gently, making the crystals look like they were alive. The feather crystal was a specialty of the sanctuary ocean. It was unusually agile and was a very good supplementary material for refining magic weapons. In the process of refining a magic weapon, if a cultivator could add a piece of feather crystal, not only would it allow the spirit power of the magic weapon to circulate more agilely, but it would also allow the cultivator to have a closer connection with the magic weapon. With a thought, the magic weapon would be more sensitive and could be used at will. Don't underestimate this point. When two people with similar strength fought, in a situation where everything else was basically the same, this little bit of difference could change the direction of the battle, and even determine the final result. The slightest difference would often lead to a huge difference. However, it was not easy to obtain the feather crystal. Putting aside the fact that this was the sanctuary ocean, there were times when illusions would create fake treasures to lure people. In the end, they would not get their hands on the treasures and would be lost in the environment instead. Even if the feather crystal was real, one would need to be at least a Yuaniing cultivator to catch it. For ordinary cultivators below Yuaniing cultivation level, once they got close, the feather crystal would flap its wings and disappear without a trace, leaving no time for them to react. Such a treasure could no longer be considered a simple weapon. It was close to the category of monsters. Although it did not have its own independent thoughts, it seemed to be one with the vast foreign space of the sanctuary ocean. If a cultivator dared to chase after the flying feather crystal, they might even be led into an illusion by the flying feather crystal. Apart from the feather crystal, when Lin Feng passed by a sea, he saw a faint blue light flashing in the deep water. Lin Feng dived into the water and carefully probed along the way. He saw a dark blue ice crystal condensed at the bottom of the sea, and a piercingly cold air spread out, freezing the water within a radius of 500 kilometers into a white glacier. The mystic ice crystal, dark light meteorite, evil warding purple gold, and other treasures were known as the 6 rare metals in the world. It was one of the best raw materials for ice-type or water-type flying swords and other metal-type magic weapons and magic treasures. Just a little bit of it could greatly increase the quality of the magic weapon. Although the mystic ice crystal here was not a mineral vein, the quantity was considerable. However, just by looking at the numerous illusions of various sizes in the water, one could guess how many people had lost their lives here for the mystic ice crystal. Lin Feng had also carefully avoided many illusions before he finally saw this treasure. However, since he was passing by, Lin Feng naturally would not return empty-handed. Apart from the batch of feather crystal that he had caught on the sea, he also put away the mystic ice crystal. Apart from the feather crystal and the mystic ice crystal, there were other treasures. There were also islands of various sizes scattered on the vast ocean. Some were illusions, while some of the islands were real. There were also many illusions on these real islands. Lin Feng had important matters to attend to, so he did not land on these islands. However, after a rough scan with his divine sense, Lin Feng discovered that although some of the islands were desolate, there were many treasures on some islands. Most of them were precious treasures that were rare in the great heaven primordial world. All of this was not even the tip of the iceberg of the ocean sanctuary's resources. As Lin Feng passed by and collected some treasures, he also followed the purple brilliance. However, after a long journey, the purple brilliance suddenly stopped. It was not because it was forced to stop after exhausting its energy, but because it stopped abruptly. The purple brilliance kept flashing in the space, as if it could no longer determine the direction. Lin Feng slightly furrowed his brows and also stopped, patiently waiting. But the result was disappointing. Waiting was futile. After the purple light vibrated in the air for a long time, it suddenly exploded and dispersed, turning into specks of light and dissipating in the air. Not good. Lin Feng sighed. The bad premonition in his heart was being fulfilled step by step. In the next moment, the void in front of him suddenly vibrated violently, and the white clouds were suddenly dyed gold. Amidst the surging golden clouds, a large amount of dazzling light flickered, and the spatial boundaries kept distorting. Lin Feng's pupils abruptly constricted, seeing that within the golden light, an enormous celestial island and mystical mountain appeared. It was a square island that was 5,000 miles long on all four shores. There was an immortal mountain on the island, and there was a large number of light shadows hovering above the immortal mountain. Looking closely, it was the light shadows of many giant dragons gathered together. At the foot of the mountain, there was a dazzling palace, and there were countless spirit herbs and spirit medicine farmed in the vast area. It was like a farmland, but it was not crops but a large number of spirit herbs. It was difficult to find a single spirit herb in the outside world, but it could be seen everywhere like rice and wheat seedlings. There was a jade spring beside the medicine farm, and the flowing water nourished the fertile soil here. Lin Feng looked at the square immortal mountain and spirit island, and after a while, he let out a long breath. The human heart, the heart of heaven. The Fangzong immortal mountain of the Yingxi's three mountains indeed lives up to its name. However, he could not feel happy at all, and his mood was slightly solemn. Many of his previous guesses had turned out to be the worst-case scenario. The key to controlling the entire Yingxi, the Fangzhong Immortal Mountain, one of the three mountains of Penglai, Yingzhou, and Fangzhong that powerful figures in the past had actually fallen into the hands of the Great Zhou Empire. The time for the three mountains of Yingxi to appear had not arrived yet, but there was already a storm in the Eastern Sea, and many heroes had gathered. However, no one knew that one of the three mountains, the Fangzhong Immortal Mountain, had already been obtained by the Great Zhou Empire the last time the three mountains appeared. Liang Pan, Zhu Hongwu, you guys are really calm. You actually didn't leak any information. Lin Feng stared at the continent-like Fangzhong Immortal Mountain before him and shook his head, laughing. No wonder you guys can sit on the fishing platform with such confidence this time. It's not because you're close to the water, but because you don't panic because you have surplus food. Chapter 723. As soon as he saw the Fangzhong Immortal Mountain in front of him, Lin Feng immediately knew that with the birth of the three mountains of the Yingxi this time, it wasn't as simple as the Great Zhou dynasty taking the lead. It could almost be said that Liang Pan and Zhu Hongwu had already succeeded halfway. Penglai, Yingzhou, and Fangzhong mountains were independent of each other, but they had a mysterious connection. The Great Zhou Empire had already obtained Fangzhong Mountain. When Penglai and Yingzhou reappeared, it would be much easier for them to find and control them. This was from the perspective of searching, which involved competing with other forces. The Great Zhou Empire occupied Fangzhong Mountain. When Lin Feng and the Great Qin Empire faced them, it was like they were swimming in the sea. They didn't even have a small boat, yet they had to face a super huge ship that rode the wind and waves. If the Great Zhou Empire was said to be close to the water in Yinghai and had the advantage of being familiar with the terrain, they were now fighting on their home ground. Liang Pan and Zhu Hongwu, the ruler and minister, were now ready. They were just waiting for the two immortal mountains of Penglai and Yingzhou to appear again. Even if they couldn't get Penglai and Yingzhou this time, as long as they firmly controlled Fangzhong Mountain, the Great Zhou Empire would be invincible. The other opponents couldn't really control the huge treasure trove of Yinghai, so the Great Zhou Empire still had a lot of room to maneuver. Lin Feng clicked his tongue and shook his head in admiration. This is really unexpected. You flatter me, Mystic Gate Master. I'm also very surprised that you were able to find this place. A voice came from the Golden Palace on the vast Fangzhong Mountain. It belonged to Emperor Zhou, Liang Pan. In the main hall, a middle-aged man sat upright. His facial features were similar to Emperor Zhou's Liang Pan, but his temperament was completely different. He was dressed in Taoist robes and looked like an ordinary cultivator. He did not have the noble air of an emperor who ruled over the world. This was not his original body, but like Lin Feng, it was a clone holding down the fort on Mount Fangzhong. However, Lin Feng had no intention of underestimating him in the slightest. Putting aside the fact that he was also a clone here, the fact that Liang Pan was currently overseeing Mount Fangzhong was enough to warrant his attention. Lin Feng would not forget how he had driven Mount Yujing in the past when he had yet to become a nascent soul. Although he did not know whether the Fangzong Immortal Mountain in front of him was stronger or weaker than his own Mount Yujing, Lin Feng had no interest in using his iron tree clone to shake such a large fortress. Lin Feng placed his hands behind his back and sized up Fangzong Immortal Mountain. After a while he suddenly laughed. It seems like this immortal mountain is indeed extraordinary. It must have been quite some time since it fell into fellow Taoist Liang's hands, right? He doesn't seem to have complete control over it either. Liang Pan looked at Lin Feng and smiled calmly. He did not deny it. Controlling the immortal mountain is not a problem. However, there are some hidden areas on the mountain that will take time to explore. Being entangled with mundane matters, I only have a clone stationed on this mountain. The progress of my exploration is indeed a bit slow. I've made a fool of myself in front of the master of the Mystic Gate. Lin Feng raised his eyes to look at the golden light that filled the sky. Silently he said, "Does fellow Taoist Liang want to leave my clone here for good?" The moment Mount Fangzhong appeared, Lin Feng realized that something was wrong. He was astonishingly suppressed by the spiritual power of the immortal mountain of Fangzhong. Wherever the golden light reached, the boundaries were completely cut off. Not only could he not use his transcendence energy to transmit his voice, even the connection between the Iron Tree doppelganger and his real body had been severed. Although the Iron Tree clone could still move freely at this moment, it was completely unable to communicate telepathically with the main body on Mount Kunlun. The main body could only suddenly sense that the connection had been cut off, but it did not know the specific situation here. Lin Feng did not panic. Liang Pan was overseeing Mount Fangzhong, so it was not strange for him to have the ability to do this. Lin Feng himself had used the same method on Mount Yujing. But this way, if the Iron Tree clone died here, or was suppressed and captured, the news that the Great Zhou dynasty controlled Mount Fangzhong would still not leak out. Liang Pan smiled and said, "We in the Great Zhou dynasty have been planning for this day for a long time. We have no choice but to deal with it carefully. We can only trouble Sect Master Lin to temporarily stay on this mountain for a few days." Lin Feng smiled and said, "You have already obtained Mount Fangzhong. You are far ahead of me and the others. Yet you are still so cautious?" Liang Pan shook his head and also smiled. "The closer I am to success, the more cautious I should be in handling things." He stood up and paced around the palace slowly. This Fangzhong Immortal Mountain is not like Sect Master Lin's Jade Capital Mountain, which can move the void at will. Although it can also float in the Ying Sea, it cannot leave it. However, there are many wonderful things about it. We invite Sect Master Lin to stay and slowly evaluate it together. With that, Liang Pan did not waste any more words. With a thought, the entire Mount Fangzhong shook, and then it pressed down towards Lin Feng. The enormous immortal mountain was like a continent, but it was abnormally fast. In the blink of an eye, it had already arrived above Lin Feng's head. Golden light shone, clouds swirled, and endless light and runes flickered in the space. Seeing this, Lin Feng could not help but laugh. What goes around comes around. In the past, I was always the one using Mount Yujing to hit others, but this time, it's someone else's turn to hit me with an immortal mountain. Although they were separated by layers of magical power seals, Liang Pan had no intention of hiding it. Lin Feng could clearly see that his clone controlling Mount Fangzhong was also at the first tier of the primordial soul transformation realm. However, at this moment, Liang Pan had no intention of fighting Lin Feng alone, even though Lin Feng's Iron Tree clone was only at the advanced Yuanying realm. It was not that he was afraid of battle, but Liang Pan wanted to get rid of Lin Feng's Iron Tree clone in the shortest time possible, and then control Mount Fangzhong to hide again. He did not want to waste a single second. Although he had cut off the connection between Lin Feng's main body and clone, so that Lin Feng's main body on Mount Yujing in the Kunlun Mountains could not understand the situation here, Lin Feng could definitely clearly feel that the connection between him and the Iron Tree clone had been cut off. If Lin Feng's main body rushed to the Ying Sea to investigate, Liang Pan would not be afraid, but he did not want to complicate things. Moreover, there were other cultivators active in the Ying Sea. Although Liang Pan could feel that there was no one nearby, if this dragged on for too long and someone found them, the situation of Mount Fangzong would inevitably be exposed. Liang Pan's actions were also within Lin Feng's expectations. If it were him, he would have handled it in the same way. However, this did not mean that Lin Feng would wait helplessly for death. A clear light surged on top of the iron tree clone's head, and a 1,500-meter-tall heaven and earth Dharma idol appeared. Although it also looked like a towering tree, compared to Mount Fangzong, its size was really negligible. However, the heaven and earth Dharma idol's 8 tree trunks and 8 trigrams appeared together, converging into a huge vortex. Immediately after, the vortex turned into a light shield, connecting the heaven and earth Dharma idol, and enveloping Lin Feng himself. An immortal and eternal power concept spread out. The light shield, which was already overflowing with colorful light, was suffused with a layer of graceful radiance. It was the eternal radiance magic power that Lin Feng had learned from the immortal Dragon City, which was also integrated into his Iron Tree clone's heaven and earth Dharma idol. With the support of the 8 trigrams and 4 images of creation, the Shira Iron Tree's indestructibility, and the everlasting eternal radiance, at this time, Lin Feng's Iron Tree clone could be considered to have pushed its defense to the extreme. However, facing the terrifying Mount Fangzong, it was still like an egg under a mountain, in imminent danger. With just the first contact, the light shield on Lin Feng's heaven and earth Dharma idol shook violently, and densely packed cracks appeared. It was as if the power of a grand world was pressing down, and the surrounding vital chi collapsed together. Even the void was collapsing. At this moment, Lin Feng was facing the pressure from the immortal mountain, and his expression was slightly solemn. Slowly he nodded. It can already match the impact force of Mount Yujing when I was in the middle stage of Yuanying. At this moment, Liang Pan's clone, who was controlling Mount Fangzong, had a primordial soul cultivation. From this, it could be seen that Mount Fangzong was at least a lot inferior to Mount Yujing in terms of pure power. However, thinking of the combination of Penglai, Yingzhou and Fangzhong, the entire ocean was turned upside down. Such a terrifying power of the universe was not something that Mount Fangzhong alone could compare to. The Grand Emperor was a well-known figure among the past human emperors. In the past, when faced with the riots in the entire ocean, he had no choice but to be careful. After hearing the news that the demon realm had started a war between the 2 realms, he was forced to retreat from ocean. In his haste, he had even been injured. After testing out the general power of Mount Fangzong, Lin Feng no longer resisted it head-on. He directly crushed the second creation divine light crystal in his bosom. The black and white divine light appeared again, shaking the surroundings. Even the huge Mount Fangzhong above his head shook a little. The creation divine light Lin Feng released seemed to connect the heavens and the earth, forming a divine bridge in the heavens. It forcibly held back the continent like Mount Fangzhong, preventing it from continuing to descend. Lin Feng's heaven and earth Dharma idol immediately used a technique to shatter heaven and earth, destroying the void in front of him where golden light had gathered, turning it into endless surging and chaotic earth, water, fire and wind. After breaking through the seal of Mount Fangzhong on the void, Lin Feng quickly prepared to leave. At this moment, Liang Pan's calm voice came from Mount Fangzhong, Heavenly Heart Dragon's refining realm great immortal technique. The coiling dragon shadows above Mount Fangzhong crisscrossed and roared together, stirring up the surroundings and making Mount Fangzhong even more terrifying. The dragon shadows that had originally gathered dispersed, gathering into rings and circling nonstop. They formed rings after rings of light, locking the void in place. The entire void surrounding Mount Fangzhong was surrounded by layers of dazzling rings of light. They flowed and flickered nonstop, preventing Lin Feng from escaping. Lin Feng raised his eyebrows. Then he saw Mount Fangzhong continue to press down, and his black and white divine light gradually thinned. After all, this was not the creation divine light activated by his main body, but by the crystal. There was a limit to its power, and it would be consumed completely. Once the creation divine light disappeared, Mount Fangzhong would definitely press down again. Although Lin Feng still had a creation divine light crystal, at this moment, a heavy voice suddenly rang out in the space. Master of the Celestial Gate of Wonders, stay here as a guest, even though you're an uninvited guest. Zhu Hongwu, wearing a purple gold crown and luxurious robes, tore through the void and appeared below Mount Fangzong. He was even lower than Lin Feng, and he raised his head to look at Lin Feng. But his gaze was filled with a sense of condescension. Zhu Hongwu did not give off any aura, but it contained a terrifying feeling that was in no way inferior to Mount Fangzong. Silently, he said, "Although it's just a clone, having you witness the great Zhou dynasty obtaining the 3 mountains and controlling the Yingxi is also a wonderful thing." Chapter 724. With Mount Fangzhong above and Zhu Hongwu below, Lin Feng was caught in the middle. For a moment, he felt as though there was no way out. However, Lin Feng did not panic. Instead, he lowered his head and looked at Zhu Hongwu, smiling. "Even though the Fangzhong Immortal Mountain has fallen into your hands, and you guys have the upper hand in this battle of the Ocean of Seas, it's still a little too early to say that the great Zhou dynasty has victory in their grasp." Silently, Zhu Hongwu said, "The tide of history and the heavenly Tao cannot be stopped by an individual. The glory that belongs to the great Zhou dynasty cannot be bathed in by others." Lin Feng chuckled. "Unfortunately, this glory may not belong to the great Zhou dynasty. The great Zhou dynasty can only bathe in the sunlight that belongs to it. The glory of others is also something that the great Zhou dynasty cannot look directly at." Zhu Hongwu's expression did not change at all. He stepped into the air and walked towards Lin Feng. "There's no point in talking too much. Let's just wait and see. However, this clone of yours can forget about leaving Mount Fangsuan today." With every step he took, his aura increased slightly. It was as though a demon had descended into the human world. The space above his head distorted violently. Zhu Hongwu's aura increased wildly. However, it did not explode with blazing qi and blood like ordinary martial adepts. His body was still like an ordinary person, but the fist intent he condensed turned into an illusion in the space above his head. There were layers of space, as though there were countless worlds. In each world, there seemed to be a deity sitting and chanting. The countless worlds gathered together to form a wheel. Slowly, it rotated above Zhu Hongwu's head as though it contained a terrifying power that could crush the heavens. Lin Feng looked at him and shook his head calmly. "Mount Fangsuan, I will definitely come again in the future. I'm afraid that when that time comes, you may not welcome me. As for today, I have to take my leave." As Lin Feng spoke, he held up a piece of jade in his palm. However, it was not his last divine light of creation. It was a crystal-clear, ordinary-looking piece of jade the size of a goose egg. Silently, it landed in Lin Feng's palm. But when Zhu Hongwu and Liang Pan on the Fangzhong Immortal Mountain saw this piece of jade, their hearts skipped a beat. They didn't know what it was, but their instincts told them that they couldn't let Lin Feng activate its power. Zhu Hongwu's body moved, and with a single step, he was even faster than the shadow of light. He had already appeared in front of Lin Feng, and the instantaneous explosive power of a martial adept was pushed to the extreme. He attacked Lin Feng even faster than the immortal mountain of Fangsuan. He punched out, and his fist intent condensed into a solid form, as if all the heavens and realms were blasted towards Lin Feng. Meanwhile, the Fangzhong Immortal Mountain above Lin Feng's head had already come crashing down. This time, not only did the dragon silhouette above the Immortal Mountain transform into a magic to freeze the void, even the great hall that Liang Pan was in exploded with dazzling light. The radiance of the great hall expanded rapidly, enveloping the entire square-shaped Immortal Mountain. It caused the golden radiance that had originally covered the surroundings of the Fangzhong Immortal Mountain to suddenly dim, turning into a dark gold color. Heaven Heart Abbot Profound Light. The moment the dark gold light appeared, the aura of the Fangzhong Immortal Mountain became even more terrifying. The heavenly might was like the sea, difficult to fathom. Wherever the dark gold light shone on, whether it was tangible matter or intangible void, everything would be solidified and turned into dust. It was a ghastly sight. Zhu Hongwu and Liang Pan were already fast enough, especially Zhu Hongwu, who was like a bolt of lightning. In less than an instant he had already appeared in front of Lin Feng. His speed was even faster than a Shushan greatsword cultivator of the same level of cultivation wielding a lesser tier sword. Such speed completely surpassed the reaction time of Lin Feng's Yuanying late-stage Taishu doppelganger's spiritual will. The doppelganger did not even have the time to think before Zhu Hongwu's fist had already arrived in front of him. But unfortunately, Lin Feng did not need to wait until now to think. From the moment he brought up that sparkling and translucent jade stone, the result of everything had already been decided. An invisible wave of spiritual power had already spread out. There was no light, no aura, no sound, as if it had never happened before. However, the void where Lin Feng was had already opened up. The Heavenheart Abbot profound light of the Fangzhong Immortal Mountain did not work. The Heavenheart Dragon refining realm great immortal technique that covered the void did not work. Zhu Hongwu's fist intent, which could turn the entire world and seal everything in front of him, did not work either. Without a sound, Lin Feng disappeared from this side of the world, leaving only a huge hole where he had been. Sensing the turbulent domain power within, Zhu Hongwu's usually calm face, as if everything was under his control, also showed a look of shock. In the palace on the Fangzhong Immortal Mountain, Emperor Zhou's Liangpan's expression was also slightly surprised. With some seriousness he said, "He actually opened up a domain passageway? This is the Ying Sea, not the void battlefield that is filled with spatial turbulence. This clone of his is only at the late-stage Yuanying cultivation level. How did he do it?" It was one thing to break through the void and travel within a world, or an alternate dimension like the Ying Sea, but it was another thing to break through a domain passageway between two worlds. Apart from the chaotic and complicated space of the void battlefield, it was extremely difficult to travel between other domains. Moreover, Lin Feng had managed to break through the blockade of the Fangzhong Immortal Mountain, and Zhu Hongwu, be it Zhu Hongwu's fist intent or the power of the Fangzhong Immortal Mountain's mystique, they had completely sealed off the space in this side of the world. Even a third-tier primordial soul almighty expert would not be able to leave so easily. Zhu Hongwu retracted his fist and moved his fingers. And it's not as simple as opening a domain passageway. The moment the passageway appeared, he went straight to the other end of the passageway. I can still catch up to his clone and kill him, but I won't be able to stop him from sending the message in time. With Zhu Hongwu's speed, he was like lightning in the void. In less than a second, he could pass through the domain passageway and reach the other end of the passageway, catching up to Lin Feng's sintered tree clone. But in the time it took to snap a finger, it was enough for Lin Feng's sintered tree clone to communicate with his original body on Yujing Mountain. Apart from venting his anger, there was no longer any meaning in chasing after him. The news that the Great Zhou Empire had obtained the Fangzhong Immortal Mountain could no longer be concealed. Liangpan and Zhu Hongwu looked at the gradually closing domain passageway in front of them, and fell silent for a moment. Although the Liangpan on the mountain was only a clone, he was still at the first tier of the primordial soul realm. Moreover, Zhu Hongwu was here with his original body. The combined strength of the two of them, plus the Fangzhong Immortal Mountain, had not been able to stop Lin Feng's late Yuanying clone. Furthermore, he had not been injured at all. For the two of them, this was a shocking humiliation that was difficult to wash away. If the Qin dynasty's Stonefeather, Shi Zongyue, and Lord Chang'e were to find out about this, they would probably laugh their heads off. Even though Liangpan and Zhu Hongwu's state of mind and willpower were rather tough, at this moment, they still felt a sense of unhappiness. Apart from unhappiness and depression, there was also a trace of doubt in their hearts. Just what is the jade that the master of the Taoist sect used? Apart from piercing through the world barrier, is there any other use? Are there any restrictions? Hongwu, now that things have come to this, there is no need to pursue. With this change, we should carefully plan our plan. Liangpan quickly adjusted his state of mind, and said to Zhu Hongwu, who had landed on the Fangzhong Immortal Mountain. For experts like them, their state of mind would not easily be affected, but once this feeling of unhappiness arose, it was very difficult to eliminate. In the long run, it might even turn into a mental obstacle. However, Liangpan and Zhu Hongwu's expressions had already returned to normal. It was not that they did not care, but that they had buried this seed deep in their hearts. In the future, it would naturally take root and sprout, but it would be within their control. When they found the opportunity to relieve the resentment of today at Lin Feng's place, it would instead make their state of mind even more complete, and their willpower would rise to a higher level. Zhu Hongwu said respectfully. Fortunately, Your Majesty has already predicted this rather bad situation and prepared for a rainy day. Now that the secret of the Fangzhong Immortal Mountain has been exposed, although it has increased the difficulty of our Great Zhou's plan, there is a countermeasure. I will arrange it right away. Liang Pan nodded slightly and looked into the void. The master of the celestial sect of wonders is indeed the biggest variable. Amidst the rumbling, the huge Fangzhong Immortal Mountain flashed with golden light, and once again disappeared into the thick fog above the Ying Ocean, disappearing without a trace. On the other side, Lin Feng had left the Ying Ocean and returned to the East Sea. Piercing through the realm passageway allowed him to leave the foreign space of the Ying Ocean and return to the vast thousand world of the Divine Land. Lin Feng turned to look at the gradually disappearing realm passageway behind him and shook his head, laughing. As expected, it's still not stable. He weighed the sparkling and translucent jade in his hand. The system's products are truly exquisite and deceptive at the same time. This jade was called the Boundary Breaking Stone, and it was the special reward that Lin Feng had received from the system's main storyline mission after completing the Prestige main storyline mission. Previously, Lin Feng had only used it experimentally, and this time, it had been brought to the East Sea by his Iron Tree clone. Its true use had yet to be displayed, but it was rather convenient for escaping. He was rather satisfied with its effects. Without this item, his main body, which was cultivating on Jade Capital Mountain, would have had to stop cultivating and rush over. He Liang Pan, Zhu Hongwu, you guys didn't chase after me because you wanted to leave it for later. Isn't it the same for me to settle the score with you guys? Lin Feng smiled nonchalantly. Don't be fooled by today's fun. Sooner or later, I'll have to draw up a list. This day is coming very soon. Moreover, Lin Feng smiled and opened his palm. A dark golden light flickered faintly in his palm and was imprisoned in a purple mass of air. It was the Heaven's Heart Fangzhong mysterious light that he had obtained from the Fangzhong Immortal Mountain. Lin Feng carefully analyzed the concept of the power within, and the corners of his lips curled up slightly. This is just the beginning. Since the other party did not continue to chase after him, Lin Feng did not care about them for now. Liang Pan and Zhu Hongwu valued the Ying Ocean's 3 mountains more, so did Lin Feng. Speaking of which, the items I brought over this time are all very useful. As he thought about this, after Lin Feng put away the boundary breaking stone, he took out another item. It was a translucent pearl, and golden fog surged within it. Within the golden fog, there was a faint purple splendor shining. It was the treasure that Lin Feng had obtained previously, the heavenly scarlet golden pearl. Just now in the Ying Ocean, the heavenly scarlet golden pearl had acted strangely twice. The purple splendor within the golden pearl shone intensely, dyeing the entire pearl purple. One of them was when the Fangzhong Immortal Mountain had appeared. Chapter 725. This time, many people were rubbing their palms in anticipation of the appearance of the Ying Sea's 3 mountains. Everyone was aiming to control the entire Ying Sea. After all, it was a huge treasure trove that could make everyone's eyes turn red. Unfortunately, everyone, including Lin Feng, had to be doused with cold water first. Before the 3 mountains appeared, one of the Fangzhong Immortal Mountains had already fallen into the control of the Great Zhou dynasty. To the Great Zhou dynasty, obtaining the Fangzhong Immortal Mountain was not just a matter of obtaining one of the 3 mountains. When Mount Penglai and Mount Yingzhou reappeared, the Great Zhou dynasty would be able to take the lead. Looking at the entire Battle of Yinghai, the Great Zhou dynasty was way ahead of the other forces. When Lin Feng found out that the talisman that opened the path to Yinghai was obtained by Dao Lord Gui Water from the Great Zhou dynasty, he had a bad feeling. Although Yinghai's space was not as chaotic and unpredictable as the Void battlefield, one must have a deep understanding of Yinghai and even control it to a certain extent if one wanted to use talismans to construct a bridge to bring people from the vast land of the Divine Land to the interior of Yinghai, which could not only be achieved by a high cultivation base, but also required a deep understanding of Yinghai and a certain degree of control. Although the Great Zhou Empire was close to the water and had the foundation laid by the Grand Emperor in the past, allowing them to explore the East Sea and see Rising Sea more deeply than others, they might not be able to create the White Light Talisman. In particular, although the talisman was only supplied to Essence Soul Realm experts who joined the Great Zhou dynasty, it also meant that the talisman was not unique and could be mass-produced. Therefore, Lin Feng followed the white light into Yinghai to verify his guess, although he sincerely hoped that he had guessed wrong. Unfortunately, good things did not come true. Just as Lin Feng had guessed, the Great Zhou dynasty had already obtained one of the 3 mountains, Mount Fangzhong. It was no wonder that the Great Zhou dynasty was so confident in the matter of the 3 mountains appearing in Yinghai. To Lin Feng, the other party's situation was set, and he had to think of a way to break out of it. He could not give up Yinghai. Obtaining the Fangzhong Immortal Mountain first would undoubtedly give the Great Zhou dynasty a huge advantage, but that was under the condition that no one else knew about it. When the 2 mountains of Penglai and Yingzhou reappeared in the world, they would take them by surprise and accomplish the task in one fell swoop, not giving the others a chance to react. However, now that the news was leaked in advance, Mount Fangzhong would become a double-edged sword. While the Great Zhou dynasty had the upper hand, they would also become the target of everyone and attract the attention of other forces. Naturally, Lin Feng would not be courteous with Liang Pan and Zhu Honggu. He spread the news as soon as he came out of Yinghai. He knew that the Great Zhou dynasty would definitely have a contingency plan for the situation after the news was leaked, so they would not be caught unprepared. But no matter how the Great Zhou dynasty responded, the news being leaked was definitely much worse than keeping it a secret. After all, the Fangzhong Immortal Mountain could be said to be the greatest trump card of the Great Zhou dynasty in the Battle of the Yingxi. Now that it had been revealed in advance, no matter how calm Liang Pan and Zhu Honggu were, they would definitely be in pain. After the news was released, Lin Feng started to analyze the dark golden heaven's heart abbot light. This was a bit of light that he had obtained by combining the heavenly realm barrier and the heavenly small world before he escaped with the boundary-breaking stone. Although it was only a small amount, it was extremely powerful. Even Lin Feng's Yuanying late-stage Iron Tree clone felt some pressure suppressing it. But this reward made Lin Feng feel satisfied. He looked at the dark golden light, his mind thinking non-stop, some thoughts gradually turning from blurry to clear. Apart from the Great Zhou dynasty and Mount Fangzhong, there was something else that caught Lin Feng's attention. It was the heavenly scarlet golden bead that he had brought with him this time. This thing had suddenly reacted in Yinghai, which was somewhat unexpected to Lin Feng. The purple light in the heavenly scarlet golden bead did not originally belong to the heavenly scarlet golden bead. Instead, it was the newly born Dark Ruler Minghua in the Cloudy Forest realm. The Dark Ruler Minghua was split into 3. The Enchantress, the Golden Rock Great Sage, and the Great Zhou dynasty each obtained 1. However, no one present noticed that apart from the 3, the heavenly scarlet golden bead on Lin Feng had also undergone a slight change. At first glance, there seemed to be no obvious difference. However, upon closer inspection, one would discover that there was a faint flash of purple light in the golden mist within the bead. Afterwards, Lin Feng had carefully probed the heavenly scarlet golden bead and the faint purple light hidden within it. However, he did not find anything. Unexpectedly, there had been a change in Yinghai. The bead had shone with purple light twice. The second time was when Mount Fangzhong had appeared. The first time, it had shone with a dazzling purple light for no reason. At that time, there was nothing unusual near Lin Feng. At that time, Lin Feng had been following the light guiding Mount Fangzhong, so he had not stopped. However, he knew that things were not so simple. The first time the purple light shone, there was likely to be another immortal mountain near him. If it was not Penglai, then it was Yingzhou. However, the time for the immortal mountain to appear had not yet arrived. Be it Penglai or Yingzhou, they were both hidden within the layers of illusions of Yinghai. Let alone Taishu's clone. Even Lin Feng's main body might not be able to find them easily. What was worthy of Lin Feng's attention was that the first time the heavenly scarlet golden bead had shone with purple light, it was much more dazzling than the second time it had encountered Mount Fangzhong. This meant that the heavenly scarlet golden bead's reaction to the hidden immortal mountain was much stronger than Mount Fangzhong. Lin Feng guessed. Could this treasure have come from Yinghai and be related to one of Penglai or Yingzhou? The reaction to Mount Fangzhong might not be directly related to the heavenly scarlet golden bead. Instead, It originated from the fact that although the three mountains of Yinghai were independent of one another, there was still a secret connection between them. At that moment, the heavenly scarlet golden bead suddenly changed again. The purple light shone again. Although it was not very obvious, it was clearly stimulated by something. This made Lin Feng even more puzzled. I'm in the East Sea right now. Why is there a movement again? Although he was puzzled, Lin Feng did not waste any time. He immediately took out the heavenly scarlet golden bead and made hand seals. Clouds of purple qi lifted the heavenly scarlet golden bead. The treasure bead swayed gently in the air, and a faint light pointed into the distance. After leaving the layers of illusions of Yinghai, the heavenly scarlet golden bead could point out the direction for Lin Feng in the East Sea. Lin Feng glanced into the distance, put away the heavenly scarlet golden bead, and flew in that direction. As he flew, Lin Feng identified the direction. This seems to be the northern area of the East Sea. It's not far from Luofu Immortal Island. It's very close to the official realm passage between the Divine Land and Yinghai, as well as the realm passage between Infinite Mainland and Divine Land. As he was thinking, Lin Feng felt an extremely powerful dermic power fluctuation in the west. After careful analysis, there were both the dermic powers of human cultivators and the demonic powers of demon race mighty figures. Both sides were vaguely confronting each other. They were very far away, and the Iron Tree clone had not become an essence soul. Even Lin Feng could not see the depth of both sides, and could only vaguely sense their location. And just by paying attention like this, Lin Feng immediately felt the attention of both sides turn towards him at the same time. Lin Feng frowned slightly, retracted his divine sense, and thought. Vaguely, it seems like two independent and complete worlds are confronting each other, both as vast as the sky. Such a realm is most likely an expert of the essence soul, or immortal demon soul realm. The essence soul of human cultivators returned to the void, and the great sage of the demon race cultivated the primordial true spirit. They all began to embark on the path of forming their own world, but it was only the beginning. There was still a long way to go before they could truly form their own world. For example, the Grand Tao and Dermic realm displayed by both sides could only be possessed by the essence soul of the human race at the Tao integration realm, or the undying demon soul of the demon race at the star soul realm. Sensing that Lin Feng's divine sense was withdrawn, the two powerhouses on the other side once again put their attention back on each other. One of them is likely to be Tao Master Luofu. It seems that he has blocked a demon clan great saint at the realm of sacrificial refining at the realm of star soul. Lin Feng shook his head and no longer paid attention to him. He sped up and flew towards his destination. Soon he arrived at the place, but it was a deserted island in the East Sea. Lin Feng's gaze swept, and a young man in green came into view. He was sitting cross-legged in a forest, silently meditating. The young man was at most 15 or 16 years old, but he was very tall. Although he was sitting on the ground, Lin Feng could see that his height was probably close to 1.9 meters, but his body was well proportioned and looked very coordinated, not like a thin bamboo pole, nor did he look very strong. This allowed his slightly delicate features to match with such a tall figure without any awkwardness. However, it seemed that he was only at the Qi refinement realm. Although his cultivation time was not long overall, his talent was not outstanding, and could only be said to be above average. However, Lin Feng's divine sense swept over his body, and found that there was a faint medicinal power of some kind of elixir in his body. This medicinal power was very strange. Although it was absorbed by the young man, it was not completely dissolved, but was imprisoned by the power of a spell. The cultivation of the caster was at least at the golden elixir period, so it was obviously not done by the young man himself. According to Lin Feng's guess, it was very likely that the young man had mistakenly taken the elixir, and then someone used a unique spell to temporarily imprison the medicinal power, but there was no way to refine the elixir without hurting the young man's body, so he could only make do with it for the time being. From this, it could be seen that either the caster was kind-hearted, or he had a good relationship with the young man in green, so he did not want to hurt him. At the same time, the elixir was very precious, and the caster was not willing to let the young man in green take the elixir. However, What concerned Lin Feng more was that the person who caused the celestial sea golden bead to react was the young man in green, who was only at the Qi refinement realm. Interesting, not to mention that it has been more than 4,000 years since the fall of Yuhuang's celestial sea. Just the celestial sea golden bead alone has existed for thousands of years, and this little guy in front of me seems to be only a teenager. Lin Feng clicked his tongue in wonder. How did they get connected? He landed on the island and came in front of the young man in green, carefully sizing him up. With the huge difference in their cultivation levels, as long as Lin Feng wanted to, even if he stood in front of the young man would not be able to discover him. After a moment of observation, Lin Feng took out the celestial sea golden bead and saw that the bead was flashing with a purple light, which was unprecedentedly bright. It looked like the dark overlord infernal flower had appeared in the world. Chapter 726. Lin Feng observed the tall young man in front of him curiously, but he did not see anything unusual after looking at him for a long time. His real age was consistent with his appearance, between 15 to 16 years old. He had been practicing Dao techniques for about 7 years, and his Dao technique cultivation was at the 10th stage of Qi refinement, about to break through to the 11th stage. The Dao technique he practiced was mediocre, and not even a complete system. It should be a very ordinary manual. Some Qi refinement tips were more practical, but they were not on the same path as the Dao technique that the young man in green had learned. He should have been taught by someone else, and then figured it out on his own. He probably didn't enjoy many cultivation resources either. Overall, he was an ordinary, low-level young rogue cultivator. His talent was above average, but his circumstances were difficult. If he didn't run into any great fated chances, his chances of reaching the core formation stage were low. Everything was ordinary, but the more ordinary it was, the stranger the changes in the Scorpio golden bead were. Therefore, the longer Lin Feng observed, the more doubts he had. There seems to be a very incongruous feeling. Lin Feng frowned slightly and carefully looked at the young man in green, but did not find anything. At this time, the young man in green also ended his meditation and opened his eyes. He was immediately shocked to see Lin Feng standing in front of him silently looking at him. The young man could not see through Lin Feng's cultivation. After calming himself down, he lowered his posture and stood up to bow to Lin Feng before asking, "This? Senior, what can I do for you?" Lin Feng looked him up and down, then said casually, "This is my first time in the East Sea, so I'm not too familiar with this place. Seeing you here, I wanted to ask you about the way, but now it seems that your situation is not good?" The green-clothed youth had already calmed down at this moment. Lin Feng did not give him any pressure. His soul and thoughts could operate and think normally. He immediately replied very calmly, "Senior, this is the Northern Sea region of the East Sea. Heading south is the realm passageway to the Ying Sea. East is the realm passage that connects the East Sea and the Demon Realm's infinite wilderness land. If you head north, you will reach the Luofu Immortal Island." He paused for a moment, then continued, "However, a large number of demons have invaded my divine land. Right now, the situation in this area of the sea is very chaotic. Groups of demons are running amok, and the north direction to the Luofu Immortal Island is blocked by the demons." Lin Feng asked with interest, "What about Dao Master Luofu?" The green-robed youth replied, "Dao Lord Luofu is facing a great sage of the demon race at the realm passageway that leads to the vast land of infinite region. The seniors of the Luofu Immortal Island under Dao Lord Luofu are fighting with the demons that have barged in at sea. The situation is still very chaotic, but I believe that as time passes, these demons will be chased away and killed." Seeing Lin Feng calmly looking at him, the green-clothed youth came to his senses. He bowed and said, "This junior is Luo Yao. I was separated from my companions and ended up here." Lin Feng said indifferently, "You seem to have taken an elixir before, but the medicinal power was sealed by someone?" Luo Yao's expression changed slightly. After a moment of silence he replied, "Senior, since you have already seen through it, I dare not hide it. However, forgive me for not saying much about other things. I am indebted to Senior Mu, so I can't say much about his matters. Please forgive me, Senior." Luo Yao is very grateful. Even though he doesn't know the level of this bronze-skinned, purple-clothed senior in front of him, Luo Yao did not lie. Even though his level of cultivation is low, but he also knows that if the opponent's level of cultivation is very high, then if he lies and his emotions fluctuate, Lin Feng will see through it. In that case, he would offend Lin Feng. It was better to tell the truth and make it clear that he had his difficulties, hoping that Lin Feng could understand. Of course, if Lin Feng was a ruthless person who regarded human life as worthless, he would naturally have ways to get the truth out of his mouth. At the very least, he could search his soul. That was not something that Luo Yao could control, so he could only blame it on his bad luck. Lin Feng did not care if he was unwilling to say it. He said unhurriedly, "I won't force you if you don't want to say it, but you have to take me to see the person who refined the 9 cycles of virtual and real golden elixir. I heard you say that his surname is Mu, right?" Luo Yao was stunned. After taking a breath, he said, "It turns out that senior already knows." Lin Feng said lightly, "It's just the 9 cycles of virtual and real golden elixir. Of course I know." He did not have this elixir formula, nor had he seen this kind of elixir, but he knew the name and medicinal effect of the 9 cycles of virtual and real golden elixir. Just now he used his divine sense to explore the sealed medicinal power in Luo Yao's body, so he knew what kind of elixir it was. The 9 cycles of virtual and real golden elixir together with the cloud sea and smoke wave spirit pill could make the user generate a supernatural power called the 9 cycles of golden eyes in a short period of time. It could see through the falsehood and break most of the illusions in the world. Needless to say, the elixir refiner refined this elixir for the Ying Sea. The reason why Lin Feng asked was that, on the one hand, he was interested in the relationship between Luo Yao and the Tianqi golden bead. On the other hand, although he was not familiar with the 9 cycles of virtual and real golden elixir, he had heard that refining the cloud sea and smoke wave spirit pill required the bones of sea spirit colts. The higher the realm of the sea spirit colts, the better the effect of the cloud sea and smoke wave spirit pill. Although he was not sure, the sea spirit cult king given away by Venerable Gui Shui was probably related to this elixir. Luo Yao was quite confused at the moment. He was not worried that Lin Feng would directly extract his essence and blood to obtain the efficacy of the 9 cycles of virtual and real golden elixir. Listening to Lin Feng's tone, he knew that Lin Feng did not take this elixir seriously. However, he did not know why Lin Feng was looking for Mu Yu, who was refining the elixir. He did not know whether Lin Feng would harm Mu Yu. Mu Yu was his benefactor, and he did not want to harm Mu Yu. Lin Feng did not explain much. He looked at Luo Yao with a smile to see how he would make a decision. Although he did not know Luo Yao's specific thoughts, Lin Feng could feel his psychological fluctuations. After thinking for a while, he could roughly understand that Luo Yao respected Mu Yu very much. Mu Yu was also quite friendly to him. He just sealed the efficacy of the elixir in Luo Yao's body, and prepared to extract it again in the future in a win-win way instead of directly extracting his essence and blood. Perhaps Mu Yu was the person who taught Luo Yao the cultivation method? Luo Yao just pondered for a moment, then said, "I don't know where Senior Mu is at the moment. I only plan to go to my original destination. I hope that Senior Mu will also go there. Maybe we can meet. But if Senior also wants to accompany me, then I can't lead the way." Lin Feng looked at Luo Yao, who had a calm expression as if he was waiting for judgment, and couldn't help but laugh. What an interesting little guy. Lin Feng shook his head and laughed. This tall green-clothed youth had a calm state of mind, and his thoughts were calm and clear. In fact, he could analyze the situation very clearly. If Lin Feng doesn't bother with him and brushes it off with a smile, then that's fine. But if Lin Feng is angered by his not knowing what's good for him time and time again, then he naturally won't have a good time. Under the soul search, even if he doesn't want to say it, Lin Feng can still know everything. But even so, he still chose to stick to his heart. In the situation where he knew nothing about Lin Feng, he insisted on not revealing any information. Even if this persistence was meaningless and caused him to lose his life in vain, Lin Feng might still know the secret he wanted to keep. But Mu Yu had done him a favor, so he would never betray him and bring unknown danger to Mu Yu. It was not that he was inflexible. On the contrary, he was very wise. The idea of telling the news to Lin Feng first to protect himself, and then slowly planning was stupid. Although he did not know Lin Feng's specific cultivation level, the gap between the two sides had already told Luo Yao that he could not make any waves in Lin Feng's hands. Any little tricks were just a joke, and such little tricks would even really anger Lin Feng. Therefore, Luo Yao always remained calm and respectful to Lin Feng. He never lied or deceived him. In addition to keeping the secret, he did not do anything that might anger Lin Feng. He did not ask what Lin Feng wanted to find Muyu for, nor did he propose anything like a transaction guarantee. The gap between him and Lin Feng was too big, and those things were not something he could do. In general, although Luo Yao refused to cooperate twice, it made Lin Feng look up to him. Rational, smart, but he had his own bottom line, strong will, and valued righteousness. This made Lin Feng feel very interesting. He smiled and said, "Little guy, if you want to keep the secret, I will not make things difficult for you. It's just that what I want to know is not something you can hide." With that, Lin Feng stretched out his hand and a purple chi entered Luo Yao's eyebrows. Luo Yao was shocked, but soon found that Lin Feng did not cast some bewitching spell to make him lose his mind. This purple chi spiritual power went straight into his body and came to the place where the sealed 9 cycles of virtual and real golden elixir was located. It ignored the seal and directly entered it, drawing out a trace of medicinal power. Luo Yao's eyes widened because he found that although Lin Feng's spiritual power drew out a trace of medicinal power, it did not destroy the seal that Muyu had previously laid out. Most of the remaining medicinal power was still well imprisoned, and was not affected in the slightest. This feeling was like a person who knew how to go through the wall easily entered a completely closed secret room without doors or windows, then took away the things in the secret room, and finally came out through the wall again, leaving the secret room and other things in the secret room untouched. After Lin Feng's spiritual power came out with the medicinal power, his right hand pinched a spell and said, "Lead." Under the effect of Lin Feng's tracing back to the origin, the medicinal power turned into an arrow and flew into the distance. Lin Feng's sleeves rolled up the stunned Luo Yao and flew after it. He smiled and said, "If this medicinal pill was refined by the person surnamed Mu, then he should be in this direction. If not, then it doesn't matter. I am looking for the person who refined the medicine." Luo Yao recovered after a long time and smiled bitterly. Senior's means really opened this junior's eyes. Lin Feng quietly glanced at him, saying in his heart, "You little guy, you're the one who surprised me." Just now when he drew the medicinal power, Lin Feng not only explored with his divine sense, but also his spiritual power entered Luo Yao's body and suddenly made more discoveries. Chapter 727. Because of drawing out the medicinal energy, after Lin Feng also probed into Luo Yao's body with his mana, he immediately discovered something special that he didn't discover when probing with his consciousness alone. Luo Yao's soul was not completely compatible. It was as if a container was filled with something that did not belong inside. It was just that the sense of incompatibility was very subtle, so subtle that it was almost negligible. But in fact, no matter how tightly Luo Yao's soul was fused together without any flaws, it was ultimately not truly one. This was different from an ordinary person's spirit and body. Most people could not discover this subtle difference because there was nothing wrong with it on the surface. Even primordial spirit experts would not discover it if they did not get to the bottom of it and carefully examine it. The problem was that no primordial divinity stage powerhouse would have nothing better to do and would purposely check on a young man who looked ordinary no matter how they looked at it. Even if they wanted to take him as a disciple and check on his innate aptitude, they could just use their divine senses to scan him. They would also overlook this subtle abnormality. Even Lin Feng himself had almost made a mistake. If he had not known about Luo Yao's abnormality because of the heavenly mirage golden bead, he would not have taken the trouble to examine him again and again. This was because Luo Yao's soul had fused so well that it was almost flawless and extremely close to an ordinary person. This person's spirit is simple and clear. He doesn't seem like someone with complicated memories. I'm afraid he doesn't even know his abnormality. Interesting, really interesting. Lin Feng clicked his tongue in wonder. But what's the connection between him and the 3 mountains of the Ying Sea? The heavenly mirage golden bead? Or dark overlord Ming Hua? Lin Feng used the system to probe Luo Yao, and the system's explanation was very thought-provoking, making Lin Feng even more interested. The target does not fit the original judgment criteria, and has already taken someone else as his master. The original master-disciple relationship needs to be removed before he can become the host's disciple. The potential value will be displayed after the judgment criteria are switched. The so-called original judgment criteria was actually a standard for measuring the 4 innate potential values of the human race. Lin Feng had also encountered a situation like Luo Yao's before. It was when he was measuring Tunten and Little Lin Tong. The system's detection would switch from the default detection standard for the human race to detection mode for the demon race or gremlins. The corners of Lin Feng's mouth curved into a smile. Is this little guy a demon race or a gremlin? After flying for a while, Lin Feng saw that the purple light leading the way stopped on a small island, then turned into specks of light rain and dissipated in the air. After landing on the island with Luo Yao, Lin Feng scanned with his divine sense. He immediately sensed that there were 2 early Yuanying stage cultivators, as well as several golden elixir period cultivators and Yuanying stage cultivators on the island. Moving forward, he came to a dense forest. Getting closer, Lin Feng released his aura and announced his arrival. Who's there? Although the other party's mental state was relatively tired, they were still vigilant at all times. Therefore, as soon as Lin Feng released his aura, someone immediately sensed it. However, the other party looked shocked and angry. After all, they only noticed when Lin Feng was so close to them. If Lin Feng had evil intentions, they would all be in danger. A male Yuanying cultivator took the lead and cautiously came out to greet Lin Feng. Several golden elixir period and Yuanying stage cultivators followed behind them with vigilant looks on their faces. Including the Yuanying stage cultivator, this group of people were all injured. Some were light and some were heavy. It was obvious that they had experienced a series of fierce battles with the demon race. This was also because the spiritual power aura that Lin Feng released belonged to the human race. If it was the demon race's demonic power fluctuations, the other party would not even say hello and would immediately run away. Otherwise, they would not say anything and just use magic tools and spells to greet them. However, they were still very cautious. In the case of not knowing whether Lin Feng was a friend or a foe, the other Yuanying stage cultivator did not show up. Instead, he immediately hid his aura and hid in the dark to guard against accidents. The male Yuanying stage cultivator who showed up was more seriously injured, while the female Yuanying stage cultivator who hid was much less injured. Obviously, she was fighting one person in the open while the other person with stronger combat power waited for an opportunity to attack. Although no matter how she hid, Lin Feng's divine sense could see everything at a glance. Lin Feng did not care. He spread his sleeve and put Luo Yao down. When Luo Yao saw the people opposite him, his face suddenly showed a happy expression. Fortunately, everyone is fine. The group of people opposite him was led by the male Yuanying stage cultivator. When they saw Luo Yao, their faces also showed a happy expression. But immediately after, the expressions of the few golden elixir stage cultivators and foundation establishment stage cultivators changed slightly. Their gazes moved back and forth between Lin Feng and Luo Yao. One of them was a young girl who was dressed in green. She had a head of light blonde hair that was tied with only a silver ring. Her soft hair fluttered in the wind. She glared at Luo Yao. Her voice was sweet and pleasant like an oriole coming out of the valley, but her tone was really impolite. Zenith Heaven, which senior is this? Did you bring him here? Luo Yao shook his head. This senior found him himself. A handsome young man beside the young girl frowned slightly. This senior hasn't reached the primordial spirit realm. How could he find him out of thin air? Luo Yao smiled bitterly and did not say anything. Until now he was still shocked by Lin Feng's means. He did not want his previous companions to not believe him. It was just that he was really unjustly made a scapegoat. Lin Feng watched from the side and was secretly amused. Hey, Zenith Heaven. Although he knew that the young girl called Luo Yao that mostly because of his tall stature, Lin Feng still felt a little apprehensive. The so-called zenith heaven existed in all space-time and was eternally free. This title was really not something that just anyone could use. But presumably, no one would take it seriously with Luo Yao, who was at the qi refinement stage. Jinxi Zhendong, don't talk nonsense. The male Yuanying stage cultivator frowned and looked at the young girl and the young man beside her. These two were his disciples. The young girl's name was Yun Jinxi, and the young man's name was Chao Zhendong. After reprimanding his disciples, he cupped his hands toward Lin Feng and said, I'm a disciple of Dao Venerable Luo Fu's second disciple, True Lord Huang. My surname is Muyu. May I know how to address you, fellow Taoist? What brings you here? If you're also trapped by the demon race, you can travel with us. We can take care of each other and head to Luo Fu Immortal Island together. Although Muyu was seriously injured at the moment and looked a little down, he had a free and unrestrained temperament, which made people have a good impression of him. At this moment, he spoke in a natural and unrestrained manner. He glanced at Luo Yao and said, Luo Yao is my junior, and his personality has always been very steady. If he unintentionally offended you, please forgive him and don't blame him. Lin Feng suddenly understood. Although he did not know much about it, he had previously heard about the situation of Luo Fu Immortal Island from the Kuei Ox King. At the moment, in the Luo Fu Immortal Island, other than the island master Dao Venerable Luo Fu himself, who had reached the primordial spirit unification stage, there were only 4 disciples under him. Dao Venerable Luo Fu had lived for a long time. Although he had not established a sect, he had definitely accepted more than 4 disciples. However, they had either fallen in battle, or had not reached the primordial spirit realm, and died naturally at the end of their lifespans. Currently, there were only 4 disciples left. Among them, the eldest disciple had reached the primordial spirit incarnation realm. Generally, when Dao Venerable Luo Fu did not appear, he would preside over the overall situation of the Luo Fu Immortal Island and represent Dao Venerable Luo Fu in the East Sea to deal with matters. The second disciple was Muyu's master. He was at the late Yuanying stage, and his name was Huang Ming. His attainments in alchemy were extremely high, and he was the best alchemist below the primordial spirit realm in the East Sea. Even some cultivators who had reached the primordial spirit realm were not as good as him in alchemy. Although Muyu was at the early Yuanying stage, his master was Huang Ming, so it was no wonder that he could refine the 9 cycles of virtual and real golden elixir. Lin Feng did not restrict Luo Yao's freedom, and let him return to Muyu's side. Yun Jinxi looked at Luo Yao and asked, Are you okay? Luo Yao replied, I'm fine, that senior didn't make things difficult for me. Chao Zhendong snorted softly. Of course he won't make things difficult for you. Considering that Lin Feng and Muyu were present, he lowered his voice, but it was obvious that he still thought that Luo Yao was leading the way for Lin Feng. Yun Jinxi said, Senior brother Zhendong, that senior is a strong cultivator at the Yuanying stage. Although it's not easy to judge his strength, he is not someone who can resist at the Zenith Heaven realm. Don't make things difficult for him. Although she was defending Luo Yao, she obviously agreed with Chao Zhendong's judgment. Slowly, the others, including several cultivators at the Golden Elixir period, also nodded when they heard this. Luo Yao's lips moved, but no sound came out. Lin Feng did not care about the whispers of these little guys. Instead, he looked at Muyu and asked, I came here to ask one thing. Apart from the 9 cycles of void and reality golden elixir, did you also refine the cloud sea smoke wave spirit pill? Muyu pondered and did not speak. Since Lin Feng brought Luo Yao here, he must have discovered the medicinal power in Luo Yao's body, and identified it as the 9 cycles of void and reality golden elixir. If he knew the 9 cycles of void and reality golden elixir, he would definitely know that this pill was used together with the cloud sea smoke wave spirit pill. However, the reason why Lin Feng asked him about the cloud sea smoke wave spirit pill was worth considering. As Huang Ming's disciple, Muyu naturally knew that his master's dream was to reach the essence soul realm, but he could not achieve it. This time, Huang Ming had placed great hopes on the appearance of the 3 mountains of Yingxi. Of course, he did not expect to seize the 3 mountains, but he hoped to obtain some precious medicine that could not be found normally from the mountains and some treasures from Yingxi, so that he could reach a higher level. While Muyu was pondering, someone suddenly transmitted his voice using mana. Don't tell this person. This is related to the marquee and your master's grand plan. Don't leak the secret to unrelated people. The person who spoke was the female Yuanying cultivator called Lu Ning, who had been hiding nearby. Her voice rang out in the dense forest. May I ask who you are? While asking Lin Feng, she continued to transmit her voice to Muyu and the others. I can't be sure whether this person is a human or a demon, but I can feel the aura of the sorrow iron tree on him. As soon as she said that, even Muyu looked surprised. Everyone looked at Lin Feng together, and their expressions immediately became even more vigilant. They had fought many bloody battles with the demon race before. Luofu Immortal Island was close to the passage that connected the East Sea to the vast land of infinite wilderness, so they had many conflicts with the demon race. There were many blood debts, and the relationship between the two races was more intense than the cultivators in other places. Muyu asked, Daoist Lu, are you sure? Lu Ning's voice sounded. More than 100 years ago, I went to the Great Thunderclap Temple and saw the sorrow iron tree in the temple. Chapter 728. Lin Feng did not intercept the transcendence energy transmission between them. Although he did not know what Muyu, Lu Ning, and the others were communicating, he could sense that they were on high alert. Lin Feng raised his head and looked at the surrounding dense forest in amusement. He discovered that the surrounding space had long since become unbelievably distorted, as if it was enveloped by some sort of formation. Killing intent overflowed, giving off a bit of a feeling of an iron and blood battlefield. It seemed like this was Lu Ning's trump card. Although she could tell that Lin Feng's metal tree clone had the cultivation base of Yuanying, she could not tell the exact depth of his strength. As a result, she actually wanted to kill him. Lin Feng shook his head. He stretched out his right hand and directly passed through the obstruction of space to grab Lu Ning. Lu Ning was startled. She used a secret ability to construct the iron blood killing formation, and could conceal herself within the formation. It would be difficult for an opponent to break through the formation, let alone see through her concealment. However, Lin Feng completely ignored her formation and directly grabbed towards her. The layers of formation changes were wiped away by Lin Feng with a wave of his hand, and Lu Ning was directly captured by him. The expressions of Muyu and the others changed drastically. At that instant, Lin Feng revealed his extraordinary power. That overwhelming power made them feel like they were facing a primordial spirit powerhouse. Muyu was sure that even his master, Huang Ming, did not have such powerful transcendence energy and divine art. The sudden change made them at a loss, and they felt even more uneasy. Chao Zhendong looked at Luo Yao rather angrily. Look at what you've done. Luo Yao looked at Lin Feng in silence. Muyu said in a deep voice, This senior, please have mercy. Although Daoist Lu showed killing intent, it was because she suspected that you were related to the demon race. We were just fighting with the demon race and were like birds startled by the mere twang of a bowstring. Please forgive us if we've offended you. When Lin Feng attacked just now, he used the transcendence energy of a human cultivator, which made Muyu and the others less suspicious. However, they were currently complaining incessantly. Although they were sure that Lin Feng was not a demon, they had offended Lin Feng. Lin Feng did not say anything. Instead, he turned to look at the sky far away with a smile. I see. Are the materials of the 9 transformations of illusionary golden elixir related to the dragon race? These demons are hunting you guys, but it was not an accident. Muyu and the others were startled, following Lin Feng's line of sight towards the distant sky. A moment later, a crack appeared at the edge of the horizon. Several large dragon silhouettes flew out, roaring as they charged towards the island they were on. There were 2 demon kings who had formed their demon nascent souls. There was also a mutated beast with wings on its back and the fur of a hedgehog. It looked like a bull and a tiger at the same time, but it was a demon king Qiongqi. The 3 demon kings charged toward the island together. A dark green demon dragon glared at Lin Feng with a pair of azure eyes and growled in a deep voice. There's someone else. He's also a Yuanying cultivator. The Qiongqi demon king howled. Just kill all the humans. On the island, despair appeared on the faces of Chao Zhendong, Yin Jinsi, and the others. Even without Lin Feng, they were all exhausted. Against the encirclement of the 3 demon kings and the other demon commanders and demon generals, it was almost certain death. Now that the strongest among them, Lu Ning, had been captured by Lin Feng, who they did not know if he was a friend or foe, they were in an even more desperate situation. Mu Yu was relatively calm. He immediately threw out a major shifting talisman and swept up Chao Zhendong, Luo Yao, Yin Jinxi, and the other juniors. He was about to send them away. I'll delay them here. You guys leave quickly and find your junior uncle Yuan. Ask him to bring you to the Grandmaster. That 9 transformations of illusionary golden elixir must be delivered to your Grandmaster. Before the major shifting talisman could take effect, it was stopped by Lin Feng. Mu Yu and the others looked at Lin Feng in fear. Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. He turned to look at the 3 demon kings who were charging down from the sky. He raised his hand and formed a seal. The heaven-bearing seal suppressed all things. It carried the powerful magic power of heaven and earth and pressed down. The 3 demon kings in the sky suddenly turned into iron wheels. They fell from the sky and smashed onto the beach at the edge of the island. 2 dragons and 1 Qiongqi kept struggling on the beach, but they couldn't get up. It was as if an infinite weight was pressing down on them, making them unable to move. They wanted to break the void and escape, but they couldn't find any way out. Mu Yu and the others were instantly dumbfounded. Lin Feng looked at the demon kings that he had suppressed. He then looked at Mu Yu and said calmly, I'm only concerned about the Cloud Sea Mist pill. Can you answer my questions now? Mu Yu was dumbfounded. After a long time, he smiled bitterly and said, I'm only responsible for refining the 9 transformations of illusionary golden elixir. I'm not responsible for the Cloud Sea Mist pill, so I don't know the situation. Lin Feng flicked his finger, and the greater teleportation escape talisman that he had stopped just now floated in the air. This talisman seems to be able to provide me with clues. Mu Yu remained silent. The dark green demon dragon suppressed by Lin Feng roared. Whether it's the 9 transformations of illusionary golden elixir, or the Cloud Sea Mist pill, they need to use the treasures of the demon race as raw materials to refine them. The son of my race's Dragon King was killed by them, and their blood was used to refine the 9 transformations of illusionary golden elixir. That's why I'm chasing them to avenge my race's son. From your tone, I'm afraid that you also have acquaintances who were captured by the Luofu Immortal Island to refine pills. You're on the same side as us. Are you looking for the sea spirit colt, or the 9-winged flying fish? Lin Feng laughed and scolded. Who's on the same side as you? He looked at Mu Yu. But this jade dragon is right about one thing. I've indeed heard that refining the Cloud Sea Mist pill requires the bones of the sea spirit colt king. That's why I'm looking for you. What the jade dragon could see, Mu Yu naturally could also see. However, the 9 transformations of illusionary golden elixir and the Cloud Sea Mist pill were of great importance to his master, Huang Ming. If there was a mistake during the refining process, it would ruin Huang Ming's plans. But now that he heard Lin Feng mention the sea spirit colt king, Mu Yu's heart suddenly thumped. The demon race had suddenly launched a large-scale invasion and wreaked havoc in the East Sea. Huang Ming had no choice but to stay here with his master and senior brother to deal with the demon race. The matter of refining pills had been handed over to his 2 disciples, Mu Yu and Yuan Xiao. Mu Yu was responsible for refining the 9 transformations of illusionary golden elixir, while Yuan Xiao was responsible for refining the Cloud Sea Mist pill. There were many materials needed to refine the Cloud Sea Mist pill, including the bones of the sea spirit colt and the wings of the 9-winged flying fish. Mu Yu didn't know where his junior brother Yuan Xiao found the sea spirit colt, but he suddenly remembered something. The sea spirit colt was docile, unlike the tyrannical demon race in the vast land of infinite wasteland. It could also help cultivators who cultivated in the water Dauart. There were many itinerant cultivators in the East Sea, and at the same time, many wild sea spirit colts lived in the East Sea. However, sea spirit colts at the Demon King realm were very rare. One of the more famous ones was the one that lived in Liubo Mountain. Although there was no news of Dao Lord Liubo, the Kuei Ox clan that followed him in the past had joined the rising Xianmen Tianzong in the Divine Land. If the sea spirit cult king that Yuan Xiao used to refine pills was really the one at Liubo Mountain. Thinking of this, Muyu shuddered and looked at Lin Feng. Fellow Taoist, are you a disciple of Xianmen Tianzong? Luo Yao, Chao Zhendong, Yin Jinsi, and the others were shocked when they heard this. When they looked at Lin Feng again, the look in their eyes changed. Even the 3 demon kings that were suppressed by Lin Feng suddenly stopped struggling and looked at Lin Feng in bewilderment. Without waiting for Lin Feng to answer, Muyu said, "The Sea of Clouds spirit pill was refined by my junior brother Yuan Xiao. I lost the voice transmission crystal to contact him, so I can't contact him immediately. I'm also not sure of his exact location now." Junior brother Yuan was refining the Sea of Clouds spirit pill on an archipelago 3,000 miles north of Luofu Immortal Island. If he didn't move because of the recent demon race activities, he should still be there. Although he knew that Master Huangming valued the Sea of Clouds spirit pill very much, Muyu did not hesitate to tell Lin Feng the good news at this moment. Lin Feng only wanted the Sea of Clouds spirit cult king from Billowing Waves Mountain. He did not covet the Sea of Clouds spirit pill, and did not seem to have any malicious intentions towards Luofu Immortal Island. Without that Sea of Clouds spirit cult, at most he would have to spend more time to find a new Sea of Clouds spirit cult. If the pill was refined later, it would not be worth it to become enemies with Xianmen Tianzong over this matter. Muyu waved his hand in the air, and his magic power turned into a light and shadow, showing the topographic map of the Eastern Sea, and marking the location of the island where Yuan Xiao was located for Lin Feng. When Lin Feng saw this, he smiled slightly. Very good. After saying this, he pointed his finger, and a magic power entered Luo Yao's body. Luo Yao's body shook, and a purple light suddenly emerged from the top of his head. A scarlet golden elixir pill emerged from the purple light, flickering with bright and dark lights. When Muyu and the others saw it, they recognized that it was the 9 Revolutions Void Golden Elixir that had accidentally entered Luo Yao's body when he was refining the elixir. Previously, Muyu could only temporarily seal the medicinal efficacy, hoping to bring Luo Yao to see Huangming, so that Huangming could extract the medicinal efficacy without harming Luo Yao. In fact, Muyu wasn't completely confident that Huangming wouldn't hurt Luo Yao at all. But now Lin Feng directly extracted the medicinal power and turned it into a medicinal pill. Lin Feng let go of Lu Ning, and Lu Ning didn't dare to act rashly anymore. Her face alternated between livid and pale. Lin Feng paid no attention to her, and he grabbed the 2 suppressed demon dragons and Xiongqi before tearing open the void and leaving. Looking at the 3 demon kings being taken away by Lin Feng, then looking at the demon commanders and demon generals who were scattering in all directions, Muyu and the others felt like they were in a dream. Yin Jinsi only came back to her senses after a long time. This senior is really elusive. Chao Zhendong laughed and nodded in agreement. Yes. Luo Yao's mind was even a bit dazed. Just now when the 3 demon kings pounced down together, that overwhelming pressure almost made all the blood in his body almost explode. But the danger disappeared in an instant. The 3 demon kings were suppressed by Lin Feng with a flip of his hand. Then Lin Feng solved the problem of the 9 Revolutions Void Golden Elixir in his body, which made Luo Yao feel even more relieved. Actually, he also knew that even Huangming might not be able to extract the medicinal efficacy without harming him. Muyu was taking care of him, but Huangming might not be merciful. By then, Huangming would probably prioritize the elixir. Lin Feng had done him a great favor. However, until now, Luo Yao still didn't know who Lin Feng was. He couldn't help but have mixed feelings. Lu Ning said with a pale face, "Let's go. No matter what, the Marquis and Huangming are still waiting." The group immediately moved, but they didn't know that Lin Feng was hiding in the void and watching them silently. To be more precise, he was watching Luo Yao. He was looking at the mirage golden bead that he had secretly sent into the tall young man's body. He was looking at the faint purple flowing light in the mirage golden bead. Chapter 729. Lin Feng suddenly had an idea and buried the heavenly scarlet golden bead into Luo Yao's body. Then he looked at the 3 demon kings that he had captured and nodded the heads of the 2 demon dragons. "Since you have come to avenge your clansmen, I will not make things difficult for you and will let you go. But those people just now, don't think about causing trouble again." As soon as Lin Feng finished speaking, he sent the two demon kings into the void. When they regained their senses, they were already thousands of miles away. They wanted to go back, but when they thought of Lin Feng's warning, they did not dare to do so. Let's go back and report to the Dragon King. With this person's protection, even if we go back, we will not be able to do anything to those thieves. The two demon dragons shook their heads helplessly and flew into the distance. Qiongqi was not so lucky and was directly suppressed by Lin Feng. Everyone in Xianmen Tianzong deserves to be killed. My clan master has already achieved the Undying Demon Soul third layer and Astral Soul unification. No one in Xianmen Tianzong can protect you except for the master of Xianmen Tianzong. Qiongqi roared madly. I want to see if the master of Xianmen Tianzong can protect you for the rest of your life. Lin Feng completely ignored him, directly flipping him over with a slap. So it was that old Qiongqi that was confronting Dao Master Luo Fu on the other side of the realm channel. No wonder I felt that the demonic power fluctuations were slightly familiar. Back then in the Cloudy Forest world, the Golden Rock Great Sage bestowed the immortal spirit Snow Dew that he obtained from Lady Umbrella to the Great Sage Qiongqi. The Great Sage Qiongqi was originally at the peak of the second level of the indestructible demon soul realm. After obtaining the immortal spirit Snow Dew and cultivating in seclusion, it was not surprising that he achieved the third level of the indestructible demon soul realm. After Lin Feng slapped Qiongqi, he laughed softly. In this way, Tianhao has refined 4 chaotic cauldrons and the blood essence of the 4 primordial fierce beasts. Although Shi Tianhao and the others had captured some Qiongqi, they were all demon marshals and demon generals. There were no demon kings. Now that Lin Feng had captured this demon king Qiongqi, he had inadvertently made up for his disciple's shortcomings. It was a pleasant surprise. After dealing with the 3 monster kings, Lin Feng crushed the sound transmission crystal. Little Yen, go to an archipelago 3,000 miles north of Luofu Immortal Island. On one of the islands, a grand disciple of Dao Venerable Luofu is refining the Cloud Sea Smoke Wave Spirit Pill. The Sea Spirit Chariot King is most likely there. If you go quickly, you should be able to catch up. On the other side, Xiao Yan answered, Disciple Zhener 5th junior brother, and Kuei Niu King will rush over right away. 2nd junior brother and 6th junior brother have gone to search another area. Disciple will also inform them. Lin Feng nodded. I still have other matters to attend to. Be careful. The Eastern Sea is currently in troubled times. A large number of demons have charged in. Xiao Yan smiled. Master, don't worry. Disciple has just dealt with a few ignorant demons. Lin Feng condensed his transcendence energy. The map of the terrain in his mind was transmitted to Xiao Yan through the transcendence energy transmission channel constructed by the sound transmission crystal. After the communication was cut off, Lin Feng turned his attention back to Luo Yao and the others. The corners of his mouth curled into a smile. Silently he waited. He was not worried about the Sea Spirit Chariot King. Xiao Yan and the others could already handle the situation on their own. In fact, Xiao Yan and the others had already been to Luofu Immortal Island. Although Dao Venerable Luofu was in a confrontation with Great Sage Qiongqi and could not receive them, they had met Dao Venerable Luofu's eldest disciple, who was in charge of the situation on the island. After explaining the situation, the other party was reasonable and expressed that he was willing to release the Sea Spirit Chariot King. Unfortunately, because of the demon invasion, the situation was chaotic. For a while, Huang Ming and Yuan Xiu could not be contacted. They also did not know the specific location where Yuan Xiu refined the Sea of Clouds Mist Spirit Pill. From Luofu Immortal Island, Xiao Yan and Zhu Yi learned the cave residences of Huang Ming, Yuan Xiu and Mu Yu. Thus, they divided into 2 groups and searched one by one. At this moment, they learned from Lin Feng about Yuan Xiu's specific location, and immediately went to find him. After meeting, although it was awkward, there was not too much conflict. Dao Venerable Luofu's eldest disciple could not leave, but sent a Taoist child to accompany him. After Yuan Xiu understood the situation, although he also knew that it would delay alchemy and make Master Huang Ming unhappy, he still obediently handed over the Sea Spirit Chariot King. Seeing that the 2 sides didn't have any conflict and that his mission was successfully completed, the Taoist boy also let out a sigh of relief. After Xiao Yan and the others left, he asked Yuan Xiao. Martial Uncle Yuan, First Master wanted me to ask you, didn't Second Master not figure out the Cloud Sea Mist Wave Spirit Pills pill formula all along? Why did he suddenly want to open the furnace to refine pills? The First Master naturally referred to Tao Venerable Luofu's eldest disciple, who had already reached the primordial soul realm. When Yuan Xiao heard the Taoist child's question, he knew that he had to answer and he could not deceive him. This matter involved Xianmen Tianzong, and perhaps even his grandmaster Tao Venerable Luofu would ask. If he answered such a question, Master Huang Ming would not have any objections. So Yuan Xiao immediately said, the elixir recipe was obtained by Master from the Great Zhou Dynasty's Marquis Jing Huan. Marquis Jing Huan provided the elixir recipes for the Sea of Clouds Mist Spirit Pill and the 9 Revolutions Illusory Golden Elixir. We were responsible for gathering the raw materials and refining the elixir. After the elixir is completed, Master and Marquis Jing Huan will split it equally. The Taoist child was the personal servant of Tao Venerable Luofu's eldest disciple, so he knew many things about the Eastern Sea and the Great Zhou Dynasty. Naturally, he had heard of the name Marquis Jing Huan. So it's this master. He really is a treasure. Yuan Xiao shook his head and sighed. Go back and report to First Master. I still have to find more sea spirit chariots. It's not easy to find demon kings, but I have to find a late-stage demon marshal. I can't delay Master's matter. While Yuan Xiao was having a headache, the atmosphere on Xiao Yan's side was very relaxed. Kuei Ox King and Sea Spirit Chariot King reunited with their old friends. The reunion of Sea Spirit Chariot King and his son was naturally filled with laughter. If Sea Spirit Chariot King had not been reborn and almost lost his life, everyone would have been even happier. Sea Spirit Chariots of the demon race manifested their original form of the demon race. They looked similar to seahorses, but their bodies were much larger. They also had 4 hooves, so they could walk on the waves and swim in the deep sea. Although they were gentle and their combat power was not high, they were good at flying in the sky and diving in the sea. At the same time, their bones could produce a strange fragrance that had a miraculous effect on nourishing spirit herbs. That was why they volunteered to stay in Billowing Waves Mountain and guard the herb garden for Tao Venerable Liubois. Unexpectedly, they encountered a disaster. Not only were they all enslaved by Tao Venerable Guishui, Sea Spirit Chariot King himself almost lost his life. Now that he reunited with Kuei Ox King, he thanked Xiao Yan and the others profusely. After listening to Kuei Ox King's previous experience, Sea Spirit Chariot King repeatedly praised, the master of the celestial sect of wonders is really an extraordinary person. It's just that the disappearance of the master is really worrying. When the 2 demon kings met, they inevitably thought of the missing Tao Venerable Liubois, and their hearts were filled with sadness. Kuei Ox King pulled himself together and said, the master has a powerful figure. Since he has clues about the master, as long as the master's life is not in danger for the time being, he will return one day. The master has his own arrangements. Let's calm down. Sea Spirit Chariot King nodded repeatedly. That's right, I understand. Kuei Ox King then asked, what are your plans next? Sea Spirit Chariot King replied, fortunately, the master of the celestial sect of wonders and his disciple punished us and saved us from the sea of suffering. Our great hatred has been avenged. Although we are of no great use, we also know how to repay kindness. If the master of the celestial sect of wonders is willing to accept us, our clan is willing to join Xianmen Tianzong like you old friends. We are willing to work like dogs and horses. If it will cause trouble for Xianmen Tianzong, then we don't dare to ask for too much. This kindness will be remembered in our hearts. In the future, if Xianmen Tianzong has any orders, we will certainly obey them. Usually, we will stay on Liubo Mountain and watch over the master's home, waiting for the master to return. The master's medicine garden was destroyed by the hands of the old thief Gui Shui. There is nothing to watch over, but it is still a thought. Kuei Ox King said, since you have this intention, I will be an introduction for your clan. But whether it is successful or not, it is still up to the master to decide. I dare not make any promises blindly. Sea Spirit Chariot King and his son said together, We understand this principle. Everything should be decided by the master of the celestial sect of wonders. Xiaoyan listened from the side and smiled. Looking at you and see Spirit Chariot King, I can roughly see Dao Venerable Liuba's style in the past. It must be extraordinary. Kuei Ox King and Sea Spirit Chariot King thanked him together. Thank you, True Monarch Xiao. Old Seahorse, True Monarch Xiao is the eldest disciple under the Master of Wonders. True Monarch Yang is the 5th disciple under the Master of Wonders. If you ask them to help put in a good word, you will have more confidence. Kuei Ox King quickly took the opportunity to say. As Yangqing heard this, she quickly smiled and shook her head. The Sea Spirit Stallion King's noble and unsullied personality is something I admire. I will naturally speak the truth, but the final result will be decided by Master's words. Xiaoyan smiled and said, there is no need to use the sound transmission crystal for this matter. Follow us and we will talk face to face when we meet Master. While they were laughing, they suddenly felt a strange movement from the south. It was like an earthquake and a tsunami. Looking from afar, where the sea and sky met in the south, huge waves surged and reached the sky. The violent tide quickly spread toward Xiaoyan and the others. Other than the tsunami, there was also a vast and chaotic tide of spiritual qi rushing towards them. Even with Xiaoyan's current cultivation, he had to treat it seriously. The others were even more shaken by this tide of spiritual qi. Xiaoyan looked towards the south and said in a deep voice, it is not Luofu Immortal Island. It is further away, near the center of East Sea. It is the realm passage between Divine Land and Ing Sea. Kuei Ox King and Sea Spirit Chariot King were shocked. They looked at each other and said in unison, the 3 mountains of Ing Sea have reappeared. Xiao Zhener heard this and frowned slightly. It is impossible to determine the specific time of the 3 mountains' reappearance. It is only a rough estimate. But it is still a bit early this time. Xiaoyan looked at Kuei Ox King and Sea Spirit Chariot King. Are you sure? The 2 demons nodded at the same time. The last time the 3 mountains of Ing Sea appeared, it also shocked the whole East Sea. Master was still there at that time, and also entered Ing Sea at that time. Although he did not control the mountains, he still gained something. Xiaoyan did not say anything else. Pure gold flame wings unfolding behind him, covering the sky and covering the sun, as if a vermilion bird descending upon the world, directly sweeping up everyone present. He immediately flapped his wings and broke through the void, flying towards the south. While flying he informed Lin Feng, Zhu Yi and the others. Chapter 730. Generally speaking, the appearance of the 3 mountains of Ing Sea did have a regular pattern. They would reappear after a fixed period of time, but it was not easy to determine the exact time. One could only estimate a rough time frame. Normally it would be within 1 to 2 years. However, it was undoubtedly a little too early for the 3 mountains to appear now. They were almost stuck at the edge of the estimated time frame. In the East Sea, most of the cultivators and major forces who had designs on the 3 mountains had just arrived and were making preparations. Everyone was slightly surprised by the sudden appearance of the 3 mountains, but it did not affect their quick response. For a moment, many powerful figures in the Divine Land, and even in Tianhuang mainland quickly rushed towards the entrance of the East Sea's domain passageway. Compared to the early appearance of the 3 mountains, the news from Xianmen Tianzong gave the others more pressure. Fangzong Immortal Mountain, one of the 3 mountains of Ing Sea, had already fallen into the hands of the Great Zhou dynasty. Everyone knew what that meant. The Great Zhou dynasty's advantage was too great, and the others were naturally unwilling to give up Ing Sea just like that. Therefore, the Great Zhou dynasty became the target of everyone's attention. The Great Zhou dynasty also had a plan for the worst situation that they had expected. At that moment, they used all sorts of methods to divide and rope in others to change their situation. The appearance of the 3 mountains only made it easier to find them. However, they were still hidden in the vast Ing Sea, and it was still difficult to find them. Therefore, when there was a commotion in Ing Sea, everyone did not make a fuss about the Immortal Mountains. Right now, the main theme of Ing Sea was the various probing and conflicts between the Great Zhou dynasty and other forces. Among them, There were some cultivators who were weaker and did not have any designs on the immortal mountains. They only wanted to obtain more treasures from Yingxi. At this moment, they took advantage of the fact that the major forces were restraining each other to sneak into Yingxi and make a fortune. Lin Feng naturally sensed the spirit qi tide coming from the entrance of the domain passageway, and guessed that the three mountains had most likely appeared in advance. After receiving Xiao Yan's mana power sound transmission and confirming this point, Lin Feng was not in a hurry to go over. His attention was still on Luo Yao. It was not that Lin Feng did not think highly of the Yingxi's three mountains, but he was more concerned about the change in the celestial sea golden pearl. After all, Lin Feng did not come here for a one-day trip to Donghai or a three-day trip to Yinghai, but for the three immortal mountains of Penglai, Yingzhou and Fangzhong. Lin Feng's goal was not to find the immortal mountains or break the illusions in the Ying Ocean to obtain some treasures. His goal was the same as Liang Pan, Zhu Honggu, and the others. It was to control the three great immortal mountains. This was not something that could be achieved simply by rushing early. If one wanted to control the immortal mountain, they would have to pay attention to opportunities and methods. Therefore, Lin Feng still focused his attention on Luo Yao. Through the previous abnormal situation, Lin Feng intuitively felt that this seemingly ordinary tall youth might be the key to breaking the current situation. Of course, he would not waste too much time here. Otherwise, if the immortal mountains were successfully taken away by others, it would be useless no matter what he said. Moreover, there was a time limit for the appearance of the immortal mountains. If no one could control it, the immortal mountains would disappear into the Ying Ocean again. By then, they could only wait for the next appearance of the immortal mountains. However, now that the immortal mountains had just appeared, Lin Feng still had enough time. Sharpening one's axe would not delay the work of cutting firewood. I'll rush over very soon after I'm done with the matters at hand. You guys can enter the Ying Ocean first, but remember to be careful. Lin Feng said to Xiao Yan through voice transmission. Once you enter the Ying Ocean, it will be difficult to communicate with the outside world through voice transmission in the Divine Land. It will also be difficult for me to determine your location in a short period of time, so you guys have to be careful. Lin Feng's original body had to concentrate all his power and divine powers when he was cultivating in Kunlun Mountain. Therefore, he did not condense a divine power Dharmakaya and entrusted it to his clone or his disciples. The Battle of Ying Ocean this time involved a lot of almighty powerhouses. Some of them were indeed not people that Xiao Yan and the others could deal with. However, Lin Feng's reminder was actually out of the habitual concern a master had for his disciples. To be honest, for people like Xiao Yan and Zhu Yi who were not afraid of causing trouble, Lin Feng was not worried about their safety at all. They should be thankful that they did not kill the others. Heroes would only show their true colors at the critical moment. The bigger the scene, the more fun they would have. They were all big-hearted, and could be called misters of grand scenes. After hearing Lin Feng's instructions, Xiao Yan smiled and said, "Don't worry, master. I understand and will pay attention to safety." After cutting off the connection with Lin Feng, Xiao Yan informed Zhu Yi, second junior brother, will enter the Ying Ocean first. The show is about to start, don't be late. Zhu Yi replied with a smile. Eldest senior brother, please go first. We'll be there soon. Xianmen Tianzong also had agreed on a secret record to exchange information in a place like the Ying Ocean where it was inconvenient to contact each other and provide clues for their fellow disciples. Immediately, Xiao Yan, Yang Qing, Xiao Zhener, Kuei Niu King and Sea Spirit Chariot King entered the Ying Ocean through the realm channel. As soon as they entered the Ying Ocean, Xiao Yan carefully placed a fingernail-sized, thin crystal piece in front of one of his eyes. He fixed it with his magic power and stuck the thin crystal piece on his eyeball. Under the control of his magic power, his vision was connected with the wonderful spiritual power contained in the crystal piece. Xiao Yan could immediately see through the layers of illusions in the Ying Ocean and distinguish between the real and the fake as well as the direction of the journey. After Lin Feng refined the heavenly illumination stone, apart from the main body, there were some fragments left. After being processed by his magic power, they turned into the shape of a mirror. Although they were just fragments of the heavenly illumination stone, They also had the mysterious effect of the heavenly illumination stone to see through the illusions. Apart from Xiao Yan, Yang Qing did the same. Zhu Yi and Li Yuanfang each had a piece. Although it was also their first time coming to this vast foreign space, Lin Feng had warned them about the various anomalies and dangers in the Ying Ocean. At the same time, he had also prepared a way for the disciples to deal with them. As for those especially powerful and dangerous illusions, not to mention the heavenly illumination stone fragments, even the heavenly illumination stone itself couldn't see through them. However, such illusions were, after all, rare. With the heavenly illumination stone fragments, Xiao Yan and the others carefully dealt with them and avoided most of the illusions. The group of people flew above the Ying Ocean that was shrouded in white mist. Their efficiency and speed were much faster than ordinary cultivators. However, they still couldn't find any clues when looking for Penglai and Yingzhou Mountains. Why don't we just go to Great Zhou's Fangzhong Mountain and wait for an opportunity? Our target will be clearer that way, Xiao Yan said maliciously. Kuei Ox King and Sea Spirit Stallion King were shocked. I'm afraid we can't do anything to Great Zhou. Xiao Zhener smiled. That's why Brother Xiao Yan said to wait for an opportunity. Not to mention others, Great Qin will definitely keep an eye on Great Zhou. Not to mention that the entire Ying Ocean has fallen into Great Zhou's hands. Just Fangzhong Mountain is under Great Zhou's control. It'll be fine if Great Qin doesn't know about it, but if they do, they won't be able to eat and sleep in peace. Xiao Yan smiled. That's right. As he said that, Xiao Yan's expression suddenly changed. He looked down at the sea that was covered in white mist. Xiao Zhen, and the others also looked down. Yang Qing's face even showed a trace of excitement, but she didn't say anything. On the other hand, Xiao Yan smiled. This is rare. I didn't expect there to be a spring of Xiaoyang water at the bottom of the sea. He looked at Yang Qing. This is very beneficial for Yunsong's cultivation. Fifth junior brother, it'll be of great use when you cultivate. Yang Qing nodded. But collecting Xiaoyang water vein will take time. The 3 mountains of Ying Ocean are the most important. If we can really control Ying Ocean, it'll be easy to find this water vein. Xiao Yan shook his head. The smile on his face didn't fade, but his tone became more serious. What if it's collected by others after we leave? By then, they'll just leave and we won't be able to find it even if we get the 3 mountains. You have to think long-term and not lose big for small gains. That's right. If collecting the water vein will take too long, I naturally won't agree. But fifth junior brother, you have Tyne water. You'll be able to collect this water vein in a moment. How can you not take something that's delivered to your doorstep? Only by grasping the present can we grasp the future. If a moment's difference causes us to miss the immortal mountain, it'll be because we're not strong enough and have no fate with the immortal mountain. It's true that we have to know when to give up when we're in a relationship. However, we have to be good at grasping every opportunity. Who knows if this opportunity will help us obtain greater opportunities in the future? Master isn't in a hurry to enter Ying Ocean. I think it's because he's dealing with something at hand. If it's done well, there'll be great benefits. Hearing that, Yang Qing pondered for a moment before replying. Eldest senior brother is right. Since that's the case, please wait for me for a moment. I'll be back soon. After saying that, he dived into the sea without hesitation. He saw a light green spring gushing out slowly from the bottom of the sea. The spring water and seawater were clearly separated and did not merge. It flashed with a golden light in the dark bottom of the sea, revealing a sense of warmth. Yang Qing pointed with his finger, and a stream of aquamarine water flowed towards the spring of the Xiaoyang water vein. The lunar true water that ruled all water swept the Xiaoyang water vein, causing it to vibrate and sway at the bottom of the sea. Traces of aquamarine light kept surging in the Xiaoyang water vein, and the entire water vein gradually fell into Yang Qing's control. However, this water vein was too huge, and Yang Qing still needed some time to control it completely. He had to constantly use the lunar true water to nourish it. However, at this moment, an extremely terrifying demonic power wave came from the deep sea, scattering Yang Qing's lunar true water and separating it from the Xiaoyang water vein. Yang Qing was slightly shocked. In the next moment, he felt a majestic dragon might enveloping his body, causing the circulation of his dermic powers to stagnate. Yangqing had never felt such a dragon might from Jieyu, who had become a late-stage demon king. Therefore, he immediately reacted. A dragon king that has attained the immortal demon soul realm? In the next moment, a huge black figure appeared in the sea. It was completely azure blue, and its body was close to 10,000 feet long. It was majestic and vast, as though it was at the bottom of an endless sea of smoke. Its demonic power spread out and stirred the entire sea. It was a sea dragon king. Xiaoyan noticed the arrival of the sea dragon king faster than Yangqing. He frowned and was about to go down when he suddenly felt that someone was observing him in the surroundings. Chapter 731. When the sea dragon king got close and revealed his hostility, Xiaoyan noticed it. When the other party released his demonic power to interfere with Yangqing collecting the Shaoyang water vein, Xiaoyan wanted to stop him, but suddenly, a very uncomfortable feeling rose in his heart. That feeling was that someone was hiding at the side, secretly monitoring and observing him. This kind of observation was extremely secretive. It was hard for Yuanying cultivators to notice, but it was unscrupulous. Not only did it check on Xiaoyan's body and mana, it even wanted to check on his divine soul. Xiaoyan frowned. A milky white sea of pure yang-real fire appeared on top of his head. In the white sea of fire, the 4 symbols floated up and down. His mana started to circulate. The bright fire illuminated the void, making it impossible for the demon ghost to hide. Suddenly, in the space, a faint light beam was projected from afar, shining on Xiaoyan's body. This beam of light was like the radiance of a mirror. It was this mirror light that was secretly monitoring Xiaoyan. Seeing that he was discovered by Xiaoyan, the other party simply stopped hiding and revealed himself from the white fog. The other party looked like a young man, dressed in a purple and gold robe, wearing a golden crown on his head, and a bright yellow belt around his waist. His figure was extremely well proportioned, his hair was short, his face was handsome, his forehead was full, and his temples were surrounded by pale golden blood, like 2 real suns. It was the great Zhou dynasty's Marquis Jinghuan, Liang'an. Behind him was a big black flag, fluttering in the wind, black light flowing, and in the light, there seemed to be thousands of troops and horses guarding the emperor. The military formation was the concept of strength to protect the safety of their emperor, no matter how strong the enemy was, even if the sky fell and the earth cracked. And the emperor who was being guarded did not lose his majesty. It was a kind of emperor's dignity that could not be shaken, eternal, and authoritative will to be the emperor for all ages. There were also a few people standing under Marquis Jinghuan's incarnation-grade magic treasure, the immortal imperial flag. Leading them were 2 late-stage Yuanying powerhouses. One of them was a burly man clad in armor, and the other was a middle-aged man dressed in a white robe. Both of them had a dignified aura and extraordinary strength. The others were also in the Yuanying realm. They stood silently behind Marquis Jinghuan. Although there were only a few of them, they exuded the iron-blooded aura of 1,000,000 soldiers. Like the immortal imperial flag, they surrounded Marquis Jinghuan at the front of the group. There was a scarlet halo above Marquis Jinghuan's head. It was like a round mirror that emitted a faint golden light that shone towards Xiaoyan. Even after being discovered by Xiaoyan, Marquis Jinghuan's expression didn't change in the slightest. With a light chuckle, the mirror light vanished. However, it did not mean that he was going to retreat just like that. On the contrary, his entire body exuded a restless aura, like a vicious wolf that was ready to pounce at any moment. Your master, the master of the celestial gates, doesn't seem to have entrusted his magical avatar to you this time. Does he think that you don't need his protection now that you're in the middle stage of the Yuanying realm? Marquis Jinghuan shook his head and smiled. He's too careless. Perhaps it's because your Xianmen Tianzong's path has been too smooth that he's forgotten that the middle stage of the Yuanying realm really isn't much. He looked at Xiaoyan. Of course, this marquis admits that you and your junior brothers have strength in the middle stage of the Yuanying realm, which is completely different from ordinary people. However, you're still far from being able to roam the world alone. At the end of the day, you're all under the protection of the master of the celestial gates, which is why no one dares to touch you. Otherwise, who knows how many times you'd have already fallen. Xiao Yan smiled coldly at Marquis Jinghuan. You just tucked your tail between your legs on Mount Kunlun and behaved yourself for a few days, and now you're barking like a dog again. You really haven't learned your lesson. Since that's the case, I'll take care of you today. Marquis Jinghuan laughed. You seem to have misunderstood one thing. When I went to your Xianmen Tianzong Kunlun mountain to observe the ceremony, this marquis did his best as a guest and gave the master of the Celestial Gate some face. The one who escaped this calamity was you. Marquis Jinghuan reached out and grabbed the pole of the immortal imperial flag behind him. He said unhurriedly, Xiao Yan, you're the eldest disciple of the master of the Celestial Gates. Bystanders respect you for the sake of the master of the Celestial Gates. Before the Battle of Western Tomb City, you first set fire to the Yu family's residence in Western Tomb City, and then set fire to the Yu family's ancestral grounds. You did quite well, but in this marquis's eyes, the Yu family, one of the 4 great clans of the Qin dynasty, is nothing more than a bunch of clay chickens and pottery dogs apart from their patriarch, Yu Xintao. It's a pity that bystanders flatter you and make you complacent. In this marquis's view, you're nothing without the master of the Celestial Gates. Marquis Jinghuan gently waved the imperishable imperial flag. Black light immediately flowed out, blotting out the sky. In the void battlefield, you relied on your master's protection and escaped. In Mount Kunlun, I spared you and allowed you to live until now. Marquis Jinghuan smiled easily. It's a pity that you won't be able to escape this time. As far as this marquis knows, your master only sent a Yuanying avatar to the East Sea. Moreover, it's still in the East Sea and hasn't entered the Ying Sea. He was careless and didn't entrust his magical avatar to you. Tell me, what reason does this marquis have to let you escape this time? Xiao Yan's smile was also very cheerful, but in the eyes of the others, it was especially cold. Liang'an, has anyone ever told you that you talk a lot of nonsense while feeling good about yourself? But today, I don't mind listening to you talk a bit more. Xiao Yan's smile grew colder. In any case, after today, you won't have the chance to say it again. Marquis Jinghuan suddenly smiled meaningfully. Oh, if this marquis were you, I'd worry about my companions first. In the deep sea, the Dragon King of the immortal demon soul realm was in no hurry to leave after stealing the Shaoyang water vein. Not only that, but he shed his dragon form and transformed into a human. He floated to the surface of the sea and stepped on the waves. Silently, he watched Xiao Yan and Marquis Jinghuan face off. He transformed into the form of a middle-aged man dressed in a sapphire blue robe. He looked at Xiao Yan and Marquis Jinghuan with interest, clearly planning to sit on the sidelines and watch the tigers fight. But it was clear that the pressure this middle-aged man brought to the two sides was different. He had already clashed with Xiao Yan and the others. The enemy of an enemy was a friend, so it was inevitable that he would side with Marquis Jinghuan. Silently standing behind Xiao Yan all this time, the blue-clothed girl smiled. Big brother Xiao Yan, feel free to fight. Zhener will support you. As she spoke, a dark light suddenly lit up above Xiao Zhener's head. Within the light, a jade pendant appeared. Pale white lightning trembled incessantly on the jade pendant, shaking the air within 1,000 miles. Even the immortal imperial flag's black light couldn't suppress the pale white lightning. Apart from this, Xiao Zhener's delicate little hand raised in the air, and a sheathed long saber landed in her hand. It emitted an ancient and primordial aura of a monarch that ruled over the world. The Sea Dragon King, who was originally leisurely and in human form, suddenly became slightly surprised. He didn't expect a Yuanying cultivator like Xiao Zhen, or to have two magic treasures in her hands. Other than the ancient emperor saber given to her by Lin Feng, the other was the primordial thunder Ju, a protective treasure given to her by her family. Although these two treasures were spirit-nurturing level and couldn't unleash their full power in Xiao Zhener's hands, with these two treasures in hand, Xiao Zhener couldn't ignore them, especially Xiao Zhener, who had a solemn expression. Even when facing the undying demon soul realm Dragon King, her state of mind didn't waver at all. It wasn't a forceful effort, but a true confidence supported by her powerful willpower. However, the Sea Dragon King was only slightly surprised. Then he looked at Xiao Zhener with interest. Little girl, you can't be thinking that you can fight against me just because you have 2 treasures in your hands, right? Xiao Zhener's expression was calm. Even though you have formed an indestructible demon soul, we need to truly fight to know who is the victor between us. But I don't need to determine who is stronger with you. I only need to hold you back for a period of time. I think Xiao Yan-Gij won't need too long to finish off his opponent. Xiao Yan's expression was relaxed. He smiled. Zhener, you are trapping me. Xiao Zhener smiled, like a lotus blooming in the quiet night, beautiful beyond compare. Marquis Jing Huanho had insulted Xiao Yan many times. With her temper, she actually wanted to fight Marquis Jing Huanho herself, but she knew Xiao Yan's personality and roughly understood Xiao Yan's current strength, so she restrained herself. Xiao Yan also knew what Xiao Zhener was thinking. He was touched and felt even more heroic. He sneered at Marquis Jing Huanho. Indeed, it won't take long. Marquis Jing Huanho looked at Xiao Zhener up and down, his gaze filled with aggression. He suddenly waved his hand in the air, and a red light appeared. On the red light screen was a list of names. Marquis Jing Huanho smiled leisurely. All the beauties that I haven't gotten my hands on yet. I will put their names on this list when I get their information. Let's not talk about the gold list above Yuan Spirit for now. Once I reach Yuan Spirit, I will slowly plan. Marquis Jing Huanho's tone was very calm, but his audacious and unbridled side was becoming more and more obvious. Miss Shen, you were originally ranked 3rd on the Vermilion ranking, behind Qingqiu Mountains Hu Yanyan and Wutong Forest's Black Phoenix MOU. But now, I'm going to rank you 1st. Marquis Jing Huanho laughed softly. Don't misunderstand. Being intimate with Xiao Yan is only one of the reasons. The main reason is that your elegance is becoming more and more intoxicating. Oh, by the way, although Xianmen Tianzong's Yu Hongyan hasn't reached nascent soul formation yet, she's ranked 4th, 1 rank higher than the Qin dynasty's Shi Xingyun. I've been thinking about her, but it's a pity she didn't come with you to the East Sea this time. He tilted his head and looked at the Yuanying cultivators behind him. I'll give you the Eternal Imperial Flag. You'll be responsible for taking down this beauty and the 2 magic treasures. At the same time, the terrifying god-slaying puppet appeared beside Marquis Jing Huanho. It emitted a majestic qi and blood that was as hot as the sun. After handing the immortal emperor flag to the white-robed middle-aged man beside him, he put his hands together and slowly stretched them out to the sides. An icy cold light appeared in the center of his palms, and it was terrifying. Wherever the cold light passed, the surrounding void was completely frozen. Even the white clouds in the Ying Sea were slowly dispersed. It was another magic treasure. After losing the ancient emperor's saber, this person had obtained another magic treasure from somewhere. Marquis Jing Huanho looked at Xiao Yan and the others and said with a smile, I'm a soldier. When I fight, I only look at the results. When I kill enemies, the soldiers under me will naturally not stand by. With that, he pointed at Xiao Yan and Xiao Zhener, then said to the Sea Dragon King, I want these 2. You can take the rest. Chapter 732. Marquis Jing Huan's arrogance made even the Sea Dragon King unhappy. However, the strength he displayed now was truly frightening. If Xiao Zhener's 2 magic treasures were enough to make the Sea Dragon King take her seriously, then Marquis Jing Huan's rich wealth was enough to make the Sea Dragon, who had already reached the immortal demon soul realm, secretly click his tongue. A god-slaying puppet whose overall strength was not as good as a primordial soul realm expert, but in terms of pure power, it had reached the primordial soul realm. An incarnation-level Dharma treasure, Eternal Imperial Flag. A spirit-nurturing level Dharma treasure, Lunar Ruler. In addition, Marquis Jing Huan himself had reached the peak of the late Yuanying realm. He cultivated exquisite Dao arts and martial arts, and had experienced hundreds of battles. His combat ability was far superior to that of ordinary late Yuanying cultivators. Although he could not use the Eternal Imperial Flag and Lunar Ruler to their fullest, it was already quite impressive. Faced with such a huge and rich wealth, even most primordial soul realm cultivators would feel like tigers facing a porcupine. It was not easy for Marquis Jing Huan to defeat or even kill a primordial soul realm cultivator, But most first-tier primordial soul realm cultivators could not do anything to him. This was the result of him losing the ancient Emperor Saber in the void battlefield. Otherwise he would have another spirit-nurturing level Dharma treasure. Even Xiaoyan, Xiaozhen and the others would sigh at this guy's amazing luck. They did not know whether to laugh or cry. Marquis Jinghuan looked at the ancient Emperor Saber in Xiaozhen's hand and snorted. Ancient Emperor Saber, a wise man submits to circumstances. I did not blame you for submitting when you fell into the hands of the Taoist sect master, but today, you will ultimately return to my hands. The ancient Emperor Saber vibrated slightly, and a middle-aged man's deep voice sounded. We are both Yuanian cultivators, but I am more willing to serve Miss Xiaozhen as my master. Marquis Jinghuan smiled carelessly. In any case, you still have a chance to change your mind before I reach the primordial soul realm. However, if you wait until I reach the primordial soul realm before you regret it, I won't care about you anymore. He looked at Xiaozhen. Actually, it is not a big deal for you to fall into Miss Zhen's hands. You are very compatible with the ancient Emperor Saber. I wanted to ask for your hand. If Miss Zhen agreed to the marriage, I plan to give you as a betrothal gift. Now, due to a freak combination of factors, the item still ended up in young lady Zhen's hands. However, as long as young lady Zhen is willing to agree to the marriage, the position of this marquis wife is still vacant. Not to mention the ancient Emperor Saber, there are even more treasures. Marquis Jinghuan smiled and said, if this marquis were an ordinary woman, this marquis wouldn't let them meet outsiders. But Miss Zhen is different. Such a proud woman will become this marquis's wife, and will be able to help this marquis in carving out a future together. Xiaozhen turned a deaf ear to Marquis Jinghuan's words. Instead, she looked down at the ancient Emperor Saber in her hand and said softly, I've really troubled you before. You must be happy that you've been freed from the abyss of suffering by the Xian Gate's master. The ancient Emperor Saber buzzed softly. Although it did not speak, its emotions were clearly in response to Xiaozhen. When Xiaoyan heard this, he roared with laughter. He looked at Marquis Jinghuan with some mockery. Liang'an, you do have a lot of treasures, but you don't have to worry about anything else. Take your pick and think carefully. What are you planning to leave behind this time? In the depths of his eyes, a faint flame lit up. However, it wasn't a single flame like before. Instead, in each of his pupils, there were 5 flames, arranged in the positions of the 5 elements, constantly pulsating. You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Marquis Jinghuan sneered, and a terrifying aura erupted from his body. Clear light surged above his head, and a majestic pillar of qi shot up into the sky like a beacon. In this essence qi smoke, there were faint sounds of killing. Countless armors appeared in it, as if the spirit and will of thousands of warriors had been added to the smoke. It was so powerful that even gods and ghosts would be frightened. The group of cultivators behind him also watched covetously. They controlled the Eternal Emperor flag to transform into a space of black light, surrounding Xiaoyan and the others. The Sea Dragon King was also restless. Xiaozhen stood calmly beside Xiaoyan with the primordial thunder jade above her head, and the ancient Emperor Saber in her hand. Yangqing, the Kuei Ox King, and the Sea Spirit Steed King were also waiting. It's just that the situation is not very optimistic for the people of the Xian Gate Sky Sect. Xiaoyan against Marquis Jinghuan, Xiaozhen against Sea Dragon King. Let's not talk about victory or defeat. The battle won't be decided in a short period of time. But Yangqing and the rest are facing the Immortal Emperor flag, a transformation-level magic treasure. It's a little difficult for them to hold on. Even if no one could use this treasure to its full power, just a portion of its power was not to be underestimated. Xiaoyan seemed to be bickering with Marquis Jinghuan, but in fact he had already calculated the stakes and quickly thought of a countermeasure. I can only deal with the opponents as soon as possible with Zhen'er, then deal with the Eternal Emperor flag. This is the sea. Although the Ying Sea is strange and unpredictable, the Sea Dragon King still has the geographical advantage. It will be very difficult for Zhen'er to win. It seems that the key is on my side. Even if I can't win quickly, I can force Liang'an to recall the Eternal Emperor flag to protect himself. Actually, What Xiaoyan was more concerned about was the reddish-gold mirror light that Marquis Jinghuan had used to spy on him. It was not a spell cast by Marquis Jinghuan, but a unique treasure. However, Marquis Jinghuan did not show it at this moment. As he was thinking, he suddenly heard a clear female voice. "Sea Dragon Perilous Waves, you are also a dragon king with an indestructible demon soul. It is beneath your status to fight with a human cultivator, who has yet to reach the primordial soul formation. You are embarrassing yourself for nothing." The white cloud swayed gently and did not disperse. However, everyone present could feel that a very powerful will was watching them. Hearing this woman's voice, both Xiaoyan's group and Marquis Jinghuan's group were shocked. "Taishu Temple, Yan Mingyue?" The white cloud gathered and dispersed randomly. Finally, it turned into a human face in the sky. It was Yan Mingyue's appearance. Her magic power directly locked onto Sea Dragon Perilous Waves. This caused the Sea Dragon King, who had originally planned to watch from the sidelines, to change his expression. He snorted and was about to dive into the sea. However, Yan Mingyue smiled and said, "Don't be in a hurry to leave. The next battle will be a battle between the top young experts of the human race. It is a rare occasion. Let us be witnesses." Falling Waves Dragon King stopped on the surface of the sea, his face dark. Yan Mingyue's tone was relaxed, but she was hidden in the clouds. She seemed to be everywhere. Her spirit consciousness locked onto Falling Waves with obvious hostility. If Falling Waves turned and left now, Yan Mingyue's attack would be overwhelming. He would be more likely to die. Falling Waves Dragon King had an indestructible demon soul. His mind power was strong. He could vaguely feel that the sea below him, which was a paradise for him, was even more dangerous. He suspected that Yan Mingyue's real body was waiting for him at the bottom of the sea. After entering the water, his traveling speed was amazing. He didn't believe that he couldn't get rid of Yan Mingyue. However, if Yan Mingyue was really waiting for him at the bottom of the sea, he would be attacked by Yan Mingyue the moment he entered the water. Falling Waves Dragon King snorted and said, "Then I want to see what kind of people the young generation of the human race has." Yan Mingyue's laughter came. "Just wait and see." The sudden change caught Xiaoyan, Marquis Jinghuan and Xiaoyan unprepared. Yan Mingyue's actions were undoubtedly a great help to Xianmen Tianzong. Marquis Jinghuan's smile disappeared and a cold light shone from his eyes. Fairy Yan's actions really make this Marquis regret. "This Marquis has been thinking of having a good chat with you after I reach Primordial Soul Realm." Yan Mingyue smiled faintly and said, "Words are unnecessary. Why bother? Fairy Yan has great self-restraint. Last time when I spoke with Great Sage Long Yi, her answer was that this Marquis would never have the chance to reach Primordial Soul Realm in this lifetime." Marquis Jinghuan didn't get angry. Instead, he looked up at the sky and laughed. "Unfortunately, she couldn't do it alone. Because of my battle with her, this Marquis accidentally escaped into a small world. I didn't expect it to be a fortuitous encounter for this Marquis, and I obtained the Frosty Moonlight Ruler." Marquis Jinghuan smiled and shook his head. Since Fairy Yan wants to watch the battle, this Marquis is more than willing. He turned to look at Xiaoyan and said with a smile, "All right, although there have been many twists and turns, the final result is the same." With that, he patted the god-slaying puppet beside him. The flesh giant let out a world-shaking roar and pounced at Xiaoyan, drawing a black line in the air. The black line didn't disperse for a long time, like a scar in the world. Xiaoyan took a look at Yan Mingyue's face that was formed from cloud and smoke, not saying anything more. The golden sun true fire behind him transformed into the image of a vermilion bird. With a flap of its wings, it had already dodged the god-slaying puppet's attack. At the same time, Xiao Zhener, Yang Qing, and the others also met Marquis Jinghuan's subordinates. The immortal emperor flag fluttered in the wind. Black light filled the air and seemed to cover the sky. Within the black light, thousands of troops roared together, and a bloody power concept spread out. But with Yan Mingyue keeping an eye on Meteor Wave's Dragon King, Xiao Zhener was freed up. The primordial thunder jade above her head exploded with pale silver lightning. It was fierce and fierce, wreaking havoc in the space formed by the immortal emperor flag's mana. The ancient emperor saber glowed with a golden light. It was like a golden knife cutting through a black curtain, cutting through the layers of darkness. The two Dharma treasures were both treasures with outstanding offensive power. One gold and one silver radiance flashed continuously. Although they were both spirit-nurturing level Dharma treasures, they were not afraid of the immortal Emperor flag that was at the incarnation level. On the other side, Xiaoyan used the vermilion bird mystic art. His body turned into a golden flowing fire, shuttling through the layers of void. The god-slaying puppet was not very intelligent. Although its speed was fast, it couldn't catch up. Marquis Jinghuan saw this and was not in a hurry. He took out the moon ruler, and a cold light flew into the air. Even through the clouds, it emitted a cold divine light. It was like a bright moon hanging high in the sky. The sky was covered in frost, and all was silent, cold and lonely. Under the light of the moon ruler, Xiaoyan suddenly found that the vermilion bird image formed by his true fire of the sun was moving sluggishly, as if it was about to be frozen. Marquis Jinghuan smiled and said, "That's why it's said that the heavens are on my side. You offended me, so fate sent this moonlight ruler into my hands. It's specially made to restrain your true fire, making it easier for me to deal with you. Others think you're Xianmen Tianzong's first disciple, a top expert among the younger generation. You think you're something, but do you know what you are in my eyes? You're just a fat pig waiting to be slaughtered. The reason this marquis didn't kill you before was because I was raising you like a pig. Once you're fat, I'll slaughter you. Your true fire, your treasures, your women, everything will be mine." Chapter 733. Marquis Jinghuan looked at Xiaoyan and said with a smile, "This marquis was born in the army and has always known the importance of military intelligence. You learned from the master of the celestial gate. Yet you can wield many types of true fire at the same time. How could I not be on guard against such power? Each of the 7 true fires is extraordinary, but this marquis lunar ruler is a Dharma treasure. If you had reached the nascent soul stage, this treasure probably wouldn't be able to freeze even one type of true fire. However, you are only at the mid-stage Yuanying stage. Even if you use your true fire fusion spell, its power will be weakened by the lunar ruler." As Marquis Jinghuan laughed loudly, he also charged forward, charging towards the slowed Xiaoyan along with the god-slaying puppet. The only power that this marquis has to pay some attention to is that domineering fire lotus formed after merging with true fire. Without this move, you're just a toothless sick cat. He had calculated clearly that although the lunar ruler couldn't completely suppress the power of Xiaoyan's true fire, it would definitely have a huge restraining effect. Even if Xiaoyan used the celestial fire lotus, its power would be reduced. At that time, he could rely on his divine abilities and the god-slaying puppet to deal with it. Xiaoyan looked coldly at Marquis Jinghuan, a hint of fierceness appearing on his handsome face. "Liang'an, you talk too much. I'm not in the mood to argue with you." He clenched his hands into fists and stretched them out in front of his chest. "If no one comes to save you today, then leave behind your last words." With a shrill howl, Xiaoyan's entire body was enveloped by golden true fire of the sun. He flapped his wings, and instead of advancing, he retreated, charging straight toward Marquis Jinghuan. Clear light flashed above his head, and 5 divine badges appeared. They scattered 5-colored light and blocked the god-slaying puppet behind him. The god-slaying puppet's iron fists bombarded the 5-colored light like a storm, but it didn't move at all. Although you also have a Dharma treasure, in a situation where you can't use its full power, you can only block the god-slaying puppet at best. You have no power to block my attacks. As Liang'an spoke, he spread open his palm and sent it smashing down at Xiaoyan's head. Amidst the explosive sound, the air in a radius of several miles around Xiaoyan's body seemed to have been sucked out in an instant. The space kept collapsing toward Xiaoyan, who was in the center, wanting to squeeze him in the middle and crush him into meat paste. The Taihuang scripture of the martial Tao, the Overlord's order, was like an imperial order. The jade seal descended, the words of the golden mouth and jade words of the heavens and the earth obeyed. The golden vermilion bird image suddenly exploded, and a purple tiger rushed out from within. It let out a heaven-shaking roar, as if the end of the world had arrived. The dark and vicious nether evil light condensed into the image of a white tiger, and collided with Marquis Jinghuan's overlord token fist mark. The violent airflow directly swept away all the white clouds above the sanctuary sea. Seeing this, Deathwave Dragon Monarch's eyelids twitched. Good fellas. Putting aside their endurance, and recovery abilities, just the explosive power and destructive power of a single move. These two juniors are already close to the level of power I can unleash without revealing my true form. Marquis Jinghuan was forced back, but he immediately pounced forward again. At the same time, he activated the broad cold moonlight ruler. Cold light pounced down, filling the sky with frost. Although the nether evil light was more violent than the true sunfire, it was still somewhat affected. However, an even more vicious and domineering roar suddenly came from the purple flaming tiger. Marquis Jinghuan immediately recognized that it was the cry of a sword. Amidst the endless bluish-purple demonic flames, Xiaoyan raised a huge edgeless sword that was as wide as a door and looked like a heavy black iron ruler. He looked at Marquis Jinghuan and smiled coldly. Then, the huge sword in his hand slashed down heavily. The violent flames left a purple mark between heaven and earth. Like a path of flames, it slashed towards Marquis Jinghuan with the power to cleave the heavens and split the earth. This sword isn't a magic treasure, but it's actually so vicious. It comes from the same source as the nether evil light. Marquis Jinghuan frowned slightly. He mobilized the cold light of the broad cold moonlight ruler to seal Xiaoyan's sword momentum. Meanwhile, he met attack with attack, punching towards Xiaoyan, who knew that at this moment, a sudden change would occur. The evil light overlord sword in Xiaoyan's hand, which was as wide as a door, suddenly split open with a blood-red mark. It was a ghastly sight. The blood-red mark was like an unparalleled tyrant awakening from its slumber and opening its eyes. Through this mark that resembled a crack, one could see the tragic scene of doomsday on the other side. Even a martial expert like Marquis Jinghuan, who had killed his way out of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood, was momentarily dazzled. The dirty blood in the scarlet and dirty nether blood river seemed to be boiling as large blood bubbles burst one after another. The dim yellow nether spring flowed silently, but it made one's heart palpitate even more. It could purify everything and turn all life pale. Like mist yet not mist, like wind yet not wind, the boundless astral baleful wind flickered with boundless red light. Within the red light, countless malicious ghosts and evil spirits could be faintly seen, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws as they wailed shrilly. Wisps and wisps of the pitch-black nine underworld's chilly wind wandered in the air like black rays of light, freezing everything it came into contact with. The blue-purple nether evil light was boundlessly domineering as it wreaked havoc between heaven and earth, destroying everything in its path. The dark black profound heaven tribulation flame continuously devoured all things to strengthen itself, its flames towering to the heavens. Nether Sea. Marquis Jinghuan exclaimed. Even Yin Mingyue and Meteor Wave's Dragon King were dumbfounded. Marquis Jinghuan activated the Moonchill ruler to restrain Xiaoyan's evil blaze overlord sword, but fell into Xiaoyan's trap. The white ruler was sucked in by that blood-red crack and couldn't break free for a moment. This wasn't a battle between Marquis Jinghuan and Xiaoyan, nor was it a battle between the unrefined evil blaze overlord sword and the Moonchill ruler. It was a battle between the crack in the Nether Sea and the Moonchill ruler. Although the Moonchill ruler was an artifact, it was currently stuck by the domain power derived from the crack in the Nether Sea. It could only barely guarantee that it wouldn't be pulled in by the enormous suction of the crack. Marquis Jinghuan was dumbstruck. He never would have thought that the trump card he'd specially used to restrain Xiaoyan would be trapped by Xiaoyan's strange sword that looked like a door plank. I've never seen someone as stupid as you. This artifact's origin spirit is even more stupid. Recognizing you as its master, it's truly bold and not afraid of being tricked to death. Xiaoyan scoffed. I have to thank you. If you hadn't used all your strength to activate this artifact, I wouldn't have been trapped. You. Marquis Jinghuan's eyes widened, and he nearly spat out a mouthful of blood. Wasn't that right? He and the Moonchill ruler had been like a lamb entering a tiger's den. He had delivered himself to the edge of the enemy's sword. But who would have thought that this strange giant sword could actually open a crack in the Nether Sea? You think you've won? Marquis Jinghuan's eyes flashed with a scarlet red. His palms suddenly changed, and the skin that was exposed outside his clothes suddenly became as white as jade. His hands, in particular, were pure and flawless. They were so pure that they seemed transparent. Even his bones and blood vessels could be clearly seen. Taishu Temple's martial arts divine power, flawless heaven-mending hand. There is a crack in the heavens, and I will lift the heavens with one hand to mend the crack. Marquis Jinghuan's white jade-like hands emitted light that enveloped the world. It was seamless and flawless, and it slapped towards the evil Blaze Overlord sword that was in a deadlock with the Moonchill ruler. It's not that I think I've won, but that I will indeed win. Xiaoyan opened his left hand like a dragon's claw and grabbed at Marquis Jinghuan's palm. Black flames danced between his fingers, looking fierce and ominous. The image of the azure dragon formed by the mysterious heaven tribulation flame spread out, clashing with Marquis Jinghuan's flawless heaven-mending hand. Although the flawless heaven-mending hand could be used at will, and did not reveal any flaws, the mysterious heaven tribulation flame did not care if there were any flaws. It would directly devour your dermic power and blood. If you are incomplete, I will devour you separately. If you are flawless, I will devour you whole. Seeing his flawless heaven-mending hand's martial true intent being destroyed by Xiaoyan, the blood in Marquis Jinghuan's eyes faded, and he regained his clarity. He discovered that without the Moonchill ruler's suppression, Xiaoyan's true fire power had once again reached its peak, and it was extremely savage. If he continued to struggle to take back the Moonchill ruler, he would fall into Xiaoyan's rhythm and fall behind step by step. This was because Xiaoyan had grasped his weakness. Since that was the case, he might as well ignore the Moonchill ruler. Only then would he be able to regain the initiative. Once he understood this, Marquis Jinghuan immediately changed his move. He retracted his hands and formed a wheel in front of his chest. Slowly he began to rotate it. A person's life was like the morning dew, a bubble. It existed for an extremely short period of time. This was why Buddha said that life and death were impermanent. There was great fear between life and death. It was precisely to escape the impermanence of life and death that there was the eternal and indestructible Vajra. Life was like the morning dew, an illusion, and impermanence. Only the Vajra was firm and eternal. Great Thunderclap Monastery, one of the 5 directions Rulai Sutras, Life Rulai Sutra, Life Rulai Sutra, Life Rulai Sutra. Even Yan Mingyue nodded slightly when she saw this. Although this person's personality flaw is serious, his strength is indeed extraordinary. The Grand Imperial Orthodoxy, Great Thunderclap Monastery, and my Taishu Temple are all proficient in martial arts. Moreover, they have all reached the peak level of Yuaniing cultivators. Faced with Marquis Jinghuan, who had suddenly calmed down, Xiaoyan pursed his lips. He has improved a lot since the void battlefield back then. Although he said that, Xiaoyan stood in the void without any intention of retreating. His left dragon claw condensed into the image of the azure dragon, while his right hand formed a strange fist seal. Immediately, a golden flame different from the true sun fire appeared. It flickered with red and blue light. The golden flame split into 2 streams according to the red and blue light. They formed the image of a turtle and a snake behind Xiaoyan, entangling together. Turtle and snake, one static and one active, one yin and one yang. They connected movement and stillness, illuminating yin and yang. Then they combined yin and yang, merging the 2 extremes. The image of the black tortoise, a powerful force that was condensed and heavy, yet agile and graceful, appeared in Xiaoyan's punch. It once again clashed with Marquis Jinghuan's treasured Vajra will seal. 2 dignified, vigorous, and unshakable martial Daos collided, and the surrounding area within a radius of 1,000 miles turned into a golden color. The violent shockwaves caused Xiaozhen, and the others to lose their footing. If not for the protection of the primordial thunder jade, ancient emperor saber, and immortal imperial flag, they would have been affected. This clash caused Marquis Jinghuan, who had been forced back once again, to reveal anger in his eyes. He had switched to 3 different top-tier martial Daos, and each one was shocking. Others only needed to cultivate 1 martial Dao, and they would be able to walk in the world. However, he could easily use them and display his powerful martial Dao strength. However, his opponent, Xiao Yan, did not hold back and fought tit for tat. He switched to 3 powerful martial daos as well, and they did not overlap at all. A mid-stage Yuanying martial dao was fighting against a late-stage Yuanying martial dao, and Xiao Yan did not retreat at all. In fact, Xiao Yan even had the upper hand. This kind of exchange was as if Xiao Yan was specifically mocking him. Amidst the raging flames, Xiao Yan stepped on the sea of fire and flew through the air. He was like a sovereign of fire. He looked at Marquis Jinghuan and smiled coldly. Who do you think is the pig that was raised? Chapter 734. The god-slaying puppet kept charging through the void, but it was blocked by the 5-colored light scattered by the 5 divine badges. It could not get close to Xiao Yan. The moon-chill moonlight ruler was attracted by the crack in the dark sea that suddenly appeared on the evil radiance overlord sword. It could only barely protect itself from being completely dragged into the dark sea. Do you know a 4th martial dao? Xiao Yan stepped on the sea of fire, and his entire body was engulfed in raging flames. He transformed into a fiery meteor that lunged at Marquis Jinhuan, not giving him any chance to turn the tables. Marquis Jinhuan took a deep breath, and his aura suddenly changed once again. It was not the aura of a sovereign that commanded the world and all immortals. It was not the vast and majestic Tao of mending the heavens, nor was it the eternal and firm Vajra true intent. Instead, it was a domineering style that was extremely egoistic, domineering, and had no limits or limits. His chi blood and dermic powers condensed as the large tendons under his skin danced like angry dragons. The violent power shook the void. Xiao Yan, use your limited body to receive my infinite punch. Marquis Jinhuan formed a fist stance with both hands. His mind, body, and spirit were at their peak. Then he punched at Xiao Yan. His punch was extremely fast, almost reaching first despite being launched later. Its speed even surpassed Xiao Yan's vermilion bird avatar. But from a visual perspective, it felt like his punch was extremely slow. Slowly, it advanced forward as if it was moving in slow motion. However, this seemingly slow movement brought with it the sound of howling winds. Every acupoint on his arm seemed to have a god awakening, letting out a heaven-shaking roar. All his strength gathered together and transformed into a ferocious fist intent that condensed into an illusory void. In the illusory void, Xiao Yan seemed to see the universe shattering. The vast firmament and the vast world suddenly began to shatter bit by bit from the center. The destruction continued to spread to the surroundings, and the speed of destruction increased. It was unstoppable. The strength of Marquis Jinhuan's punch also constantly increased. In the beginning, it was not outstanding. In fact, it was inferior to the strength he had previously displayed. However, as his fist slowly pushed forward, a concept of infinite power that surpassed everything was emitted. The power of his fist continued to increase, as if there was no end to it. The others didn't recognize it, but Yan Mingyue looked surprised. Ever since she appeared, she had only shown this behavior when the crack of the netherworld sea appeared. She looked at the scene in front of her with surprise and said, "This is the strongest martial art of the ruthless sovereign, the Fist of Infinity?" The Ruthless Emperor was the last human emperor of the Human Emperor era. Back then, his title was actually the Emperor of Yu. After he was deposed and overthrown, he was called the Ruthless Emperor because of his perverse actions and the destruction of countless lives. Although the Ruthless Emperor was overthrown by the alliance of various forces, his power as the human emperor at that time was not to be underestimated. The Limitless Fist was the crystallization of the ruthless sovereign's pinnacle of martial arts. It was a power that surpassed everything and had no limits. As he punched out, the strength of his fist continued to increase. He wanted to create a world for his master that would surpass all those who had come before him, surpass all obstacles, and be unrestrained by anyone. Xiao Yan's eyes lit up when he saw this punch. So this is your way of attaining enlightenment. It's a mystique derived from your martial arts foundation. Ha, this punch is finally a little interesting. It's better than those martial mystiques you learned halfway through. Marquis Jinhuan's expression was calm. Xiao Yan, I have to say that you are a good opponent. I'm very surprised. It looks like I won't be able to take you down without using my true strength. Having an opponent like you is beneficial to my true growth, but everything ends here. Although I don't want to admit it, I really can't let you continue to grow. Otherwise, a fat pig like you will really soar into the sky. Marquis Jinhuan's limitless fist completely erupted. It had completely surpassed the level of a Yuaniing cultivator. Even Meteor Wave's Dragon King, who was watching the battle, frowned. He realized that if he didn't reveal his true form, it would be a little dangerous for him to face this punch. What was even more terrifying was that the power of Marquis Jinhuan's limitless fist was still increasing. It was as if there was no end and no limit. In Xiaoyan's eyes, fiery light shot to the sky. Facing Marquis Jinhuan's punch, he had no intention of dodging at all. Instead, he took a step forward and focused, directly turning his body and throwing a punch. Like swinging a sledgehammer, it smashed towards Marquis Jinhuan. Master, forgive this disciple for the new martial arts that you've created. I'll try it on this guy first. As Xiaoyan turned his body and punched, the power of the Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Black Tortoise, and Vermilion Bird formed by the 4 true fires surged out from the sea of milky white flames above his head. The Azure Dragon turned into water, the White Tiger turned into wind, the Black Tortoise turned into earth, and the Vermilion Bird turned into fire. They directly shattered the void, causing the earth, water, fire, and wind to go berserk. Boundless power constantly transformed, and then collapsed. This was the path of the 8 trigram sky collapsing hammer, which used the power of the 4 elephants as the foundation. The power grew infinitely, and then it was constantly destroyed. The violent power was like nuclear fission, increasing to an incomparably terrifying level. This terrifying power, along with the infinitely increasing power of Marquis Jinhuan's limitless fist, was destroyed as well. It transformed into the power source of Xiaoyan's punch. It was the 4 symbols world obliteration hammer. A result of the 4 symbols heaven collapsing hammer powered by the 4 symbols heaven collapsing hammer. The space in the sanctuary sea that spanned thousands of kilometers trembled as though the foreign space had its own thoughts. It instinctively rejected the power of obliteration. This martial Tao is too terrifying. It's close to the Great Lane Monastery's Virokana palm. Marquis Jinhuan was alarmed as he watched the illusory void condensed by his fist intent completely collapse. However, it wasn't his own fist intent that had activated it. Instead, it had been destroyed by an enemy from the outside. Damn it! Damn it! I hate that my limitless fist is incomplete. Otherwise, how could I be suppressed by you? The 4 symbols world annihilation hammer that Xiaoyan had inherited from Lin Feng had a terrifying power that could obliterate the world. It directly shattered Marquis Jinhuan's limitless fist. Before the limitless fist could expand to its peak, it was interrupted by the 4 symbols world annihilation hammer. It was like a fire that had just ignited was extinguished by cold water before it could wreak havoc. This stifling feeling made Marquis Jinhuan want to vomit blood. At this moment, a crimson halo suddenly appeared in his chest. It was like a round mirror that emitted a faint golden light. It was the round mirror he had used to spy on Xiaoyan. At this moment, it was like a heart-protecting mirror that blocked Marquis Jinhuan's chest. In the next moment, a ruthless and unbridled power aura spread out. It had the ambition to surpass, conquer, and dominate everything. With the crimson round mirror as the center, reddish gold light rapidly spread out and covered Marquis Jinhuan's entire body. It transformed into a suit of armor that completely protected him. In the next moment, this reddish gold armor directly withstood Xiaoyan's ferocious 4 symbols world annihilation hammer. Amidst the rumble, flames soared into the sky, and a chain of explosions occurred. A reddish gold figure was sent flying, but he soon stabilized himself in the void. Streaks of fire danced on the reddish gold armor. They hadn't been completely extinguished, but the armor had actually withstood Xiaoyan's ferocious punch and protected Marquis Jinhuan. Yin Mingyue sighed when she saw this. As expected, it's the Ruthless Emperor's battle armor. Its original name was the Emperor of Yu's battle armor, and it was the Ruthless Emperor's personal treasure. The Ruthless Emperor had spent a great deal of effort to refine it, and it had the potential to become a treasure of fortune. Unfortunately, The ruthless emperor had been deposed and overthrown before this fortune was complete. The battle armor had also been severely damaged, and its whereabouts were unknown. Even now, Yan Mingyue could tell that although the ruthless emperor's battle armor had been repaired by Marquis Jinhuan, it still hadn't returned to its peak state. It was also a treasure of fortune that hadn't been fully refined, but it was even worse off than Immortal Dragon City, which had been heavily injured before it had been completely refined. Even so, this treasure was extremely powerful, and it was completely connected to Marquis Jinhuan's mind. It was worthy of being his final trump card. After putting on the ruthless emperor's battle armor, Marquis Jinhuan's strength could no longer be regarded as that of a Yuanying cultivator. The battle armor seemed to have fused with him, and it forcefully raised his strength to the nascent soul stage. Unexpected, unexpected. Xiaoyan, you're actually so powerful. To think that I treated you as a pig, that I would only kill you when you were fat. What a waste of an opponent. If it weren't for my Emperor of Yu's battle armor protecting me in time, I would have been heavily injured even if I didn't die from that punch. Marquis Jinhuan's entire body was wrapped up in the ruthless Emperor's battle armor, and he exuded a wild aura of power. He seemed to have transformed into a golden giant. The Emperor of Yu's battle armor has the potential to become a fortune artifact, but it was too heavily damaged during the final years of the ancient era, nearly crippling its foundation. Thus, even though it is powerful, I have never wanted to use it. I want to slowly recuperate so that I won't lose sight of the bigger picture, Marquis Jinhuan roared. But today, in order to kill you, I can only make an exception. Xiaoyan sneered. Is this turtle shell your final trump card? Turtle shell? Marquis Jinhuan sneered. It seems you still don't understand. With a boom, Marquis Jinhuan transformed into a golden bolt of lightning and charged at Xiaoyan. His speed was more than twice as fast as before. Arriving in front of Xiaoyan, he punched out. It was the Boundless Fist. But the Boundless Fist that Marquis Jinhuan used this time was even more terrifying than before with the support of the Ruthless Emperor's battle armor. It faced Xiaoyan's 4 divisions World Annihilation Hammers head-on, and was not at a disadvantage at all. With the support of the Ruthless Emperor's battle armor, Marquis Jinhuan's physical strength had risen to a whole new level. He could support the Boundless Fist even more violently, and he didn't have to worry about his physical body collapsing first. In the sky above the sea sanctuary, the two sides clashed 3 times, but there was no clear victor. With the protection of the Ruthless Emperor's battle armor, Marquis Jinhuan had completely given up on defending himself, and he didn't have to worry about exhausting his qi, blood, and magic power. The power of his divine arts and martial arts was truly limitless and terrifying. TSK, I use 4 types of true fire to activate the 4 divisions World Annihilation Hammers, so the power of World Annihilation isn't bad, but I still don't have enough understanding of Master's World Annihilation concept of earth, water, fire, and wind. In the end, it's not as powerful as when Master uses it at the same realm. Facing Marquis Jinhuan, whose strength had risen to a whole new level, Xiaoyan suddenly laughed. I was waiting for you to use your final trump card. From the moment they met, Xiaoyan's intuition told him that Marquis Jinhuan's most threatening power was related to the strange mirror light that was spying on him. From the looks of it, it was just as he had expected. Xiaoyan spread his hands to the sides, and the blazing flames swayed constantly, emitting a power that made one's heart palpitate. Even under the protection of the Ruthless Emperor's battle armor, Marquis Jinhuan felt his heart palpitate slightly. Have you ever heard of the saying, strip a pig naked? Xiaoyan smiled, but his smile was rather fierce. I'll strip you naked today. You are indeed full of treasures, but without these treasures, I want to see how much strength you have left. Chapter 735. Your ancient Emperor Saber has long been lost in the void battlefield. Your god-slaying puppet, after I finish you off, I will suppress it with the 5 divine badges. Even if that lousy ruler of yours wasn't sucked away by the netherworld sea, it was destined to never return to your hands. Your immortal imperial flag will also be suppressed by Zhen, Er's primordial thunder jade and ancient Emperor Saber. After all, Your useless subordinates are not as strong as Jun. Now I'll strip you of your last trump card. Without these treasures, you're not even as good as that bastard Shirtiani from the Shir family. I'd like to see how many punches you can take. The raging flames spread out on both sides of Xiao Yan's body began to merge. His Dharma power and aura surged. From his left palm, the pure gold needle-like solar true fire, the milky white pure yang true fire, and the golden Nanmingli fire with red and blue radiance began to merge. The violent aura made everyone present shudder. Almost instantly, the leaping flames disappeared, leaving only a golden and milky white lotus seat. The red and blue stamens on the lotus seat swayed continuously. In Xiao Yan's right palm, there was an even more ferocious and overbearing dark evil flame. The combination of the Xiantian tribulation flame and the Nanmingli fire made the fire even more violent. It directly burned the surrounding void. After a while, it also turned into a pale gold, blue-purple, and dark black lotus seat. The lotus seat was surrounded by red and blue radiance. Falling Wave's Dragon King's expression was solemn. He would not underestimate Xiao Yan now. He viewed Xiao Yan as his equal. If he fought with Xiao Yan, it would not be a great sage of the demon clan bullying a middle Yuanying human clan cultivator. It would be a fierce battle of life and death. Even Yan Mingyue's expression was solemn. When we parted that year, I really didn't think that the youth would grow to this stage. He's only at the middle stage of Yuanying. I really don't know how the master of the celestial sect of wonders raised him. The cultivators under Marquis Jing Huan's command were swept up by the imperishable imperial flag at this moment, and retreated far away. They would rather be suppressed by Xiaozhen Yangqing, and the others to a disadvantage than be willing to approach the battlefield between Xiao Yan and Marquis Jing Huan. Marquis Jing Huan sucked in a deep breath. I heard that back in the Yu family's ancestral lands, you were nearly exhausted after activating a spell that fused 3 great fires. But now it seems that you who are in the middle stage of Yuanying can control the fusion spell of the 3 true fires with ease. Wrapped in the ruthless emperor's battle robe, Marquis Jing Huan transformed into a scarlet gold giant. His blood energy fused with the spirit energy of his magic treasure, instantly transforming into a scarlet gold bolt of lightning that pounced toward Xiao Yan. He wanted to interrupt Xiao Yan's process of fusing with the true fire. Xiao Yan pushed his hands forward, and the 2 firmament fire lotuses formed from the fusion of the 3 true fires shot towards Marquis Jing Huan. In the past, when he was in the late stage of golden elixir, he'd killed 3 of the Yu family's late-stage Yuanying patriarchs with a single firmament fire lotus. Now that he was in the middle stage of Yuanying, the power of his true fire was even stronger, and the firmament fire lotuses he created were even more domineering. Even nascent soul cultivators had to be careful and not be careless. However, Marquis Jing Huan didn't dodge. Instead, he roared angrily and continued charging straight at Xiao Yan. Kill! Marquis Jing Huan had a clear grasp of the current situation. Although Xiao Yan's protective magic treasure, the 5 divine badges, made it difficult for the god-slaying puppet to advance, he was also entangled by the god-slaying puppet and couldn't protect Xiao Yan. At this moment, although Xiao Yan had activated the firmament fire lotuses and had terrifying offensive power, his defenses were much weaker. Marquis Jing Huan wanted to gamble. He wanted to use the ruthless emperor battle armor's offense and defense to resist Xiao Yan's firmament fire lotuses. Then he would use his martial Dao to kill and injure Xiao Yan. The terrifying endless fist was executed once again. The violent power shattered the void, and the vast space within a 500-kilometer radius of the sanctuary sea was completely destroyed by the battle between Xiao Yan and Marquis Jing Huan. With the support of the ruthless emperor battle armor, Marquis Jing Huan's endless fist was extremely powerful. It was stronger than Xiao Yan's tricolored fire lotuses. Moreover, the ruthless emperor battle armor's defense was even more astonishing. Xiao Yan's first true sunfire, pure yang true fire, and Nanmingli fire merged to form a tricolored fire lotus. When it struck Marquis Jing Huan, it erupted with dazzling flames that caused his entire body to sway. However, the reddish-gold battle armor didn't show any signs of damage. It withstood Xiao Yan's attack head-on. Next, the second nether evil flame, mysterious heavenly tribulation flame, and Nanmingli fire merged to form a tricolored fire lotus. It was even more powerful, causing the reddish-gold light of Marquis Jinghuan's ruthless emperor battle armor to dim slightly. However, it still couldn't break through its defense. Even if it was an incomplete and immature magic treasure, even if it had suffered great damage in the past, even if its current owner was Marquis Jinghuan, who hadn't even reached the nascent soul stage. However, the ruthless emperor had placed high hopes on the ruthless emperor battle armor in the past. It had the potential to become a treasure of creation. It wasn't something that a Yuanian cultivator could easily humiliate, even if this Yuanian cultivator was a freak with extraordinary strength like Xiao Yan. Even Yan Mingyue and Falling Waves Dragon King weren't completely confident that they could break through the ruthless emperor battle armor's defense. Now that he didn't need to worry about his defense, Marquis Jinghuan pushed his attacks to the limit. The power of his Infinity Fist became increasingly violent, pressing down on Xiao Yan. Right now, he dared to take on Xiao Yan's attacks head-on, but as long as he hit Xiao Yan would die without a doubt. Seeing Xiao Yan use the Vermilion Bird mystic art, flapping his golden flame wings and retreating, Marquis Jinghuan's heart finally felt carefree again. The refreshing feeling of having the Pearl of Wisdom in his hands caused his spirit to return to the peak once more. In the process of punching, Marquis Jinghuan was pleasantly surprised to find that some of the flaws in the Ruthless Emperor Dao art and Infinity Fist he had learned through the Ruthless Emperor battle armor were gradually reappearing, showing signs of being mended. This was a completely unexpected surprise for Marquis Jinghuan. The more carefree his attacks felt, the clearer his thoughts became, and the closer the connection between his spirit and the Ruthless Emperor battle armor became. Much of the fog in the past gradually dispersed, allowing him to enter a virtuous cycle. His understanding of Dao arts and divine arts deepened. The direct result was that the power of his Infinity Fist became stronger and stronger, and his attacks became fiercer and fiercer. Marquis Jinghuan even had a feeling that even if he took off the Ruthless Emperor battle armor and used his Infinity Fist against Xiao Yan's four symbols apocalyptic hammers, he would still be able to put up a fight. The situation seemed to be disadvantageous to Xiao Yan, but Yan Mingyue, who was watching from the sidelines, had some doubts. Why is Xiao Yan not using that terrifying martial art from before? Why is he using this tricolored fire lotus? To him, both are divine arts that consume a lot of magic power. Moreover, if he's fusing three types of true fire, it should be the combination of the Nether Evil Blaze, the Solar True Fire, and the mysterious Heavenly Tribulation Flame. That's the most powerful combination. Why is he not using it? Wait, could it be that? At that moment, Marquis Jinghuan let out a long roar, feeling extremely carefree. Xiao Yan, you are really my lucky star. I could have attained the Essence Soul long ago, but I've been pursuing the Essence Soul Dao. My divine arts and magic power have also reached the strongest level. This battle with you allowed me to master all my Dao arts and divine arts. After killing you, my essence, spirit, and spirit will be completely perfected. I can directly cultivate an essence soul avatar, and that will be the most perfect state. Marquis Jinghuan fused with the Ruthless Emperor battle armor, and transformed into a scarlet gold flash. He turned into millions of figures in the void, seeming to be everywhere. It was no longer just the Infinity Fist. He also used the treasured Vajrawheel seal, the flawless heaven mending hand, the Overlord's token, and many other martial arts divine arts. As he attacked, Marquis Jinghuan was gradually merging these various martial arts mystiques into one. With the boundless fist that surpassed everything and had no limits as the foundation, he was able to derive a powerful martial arts mystique that belonged solely to Marquis Jinghuan. Xiao Yan, you are a good stepping stone. Marquis Jinghuan let out a long roar and punched again. But at that moment, the Ruthless Emperor battle armor on his body suddenly trembled violently. The Dharma treasure that had fused with his soul sent a sharp warning, as if extreme danger was approaching. Oh! Marquis Jinghuan suddenly stopped and retreated without hesitation. But it was already too late. The entire space was filled with all kinds of flames. Those were the true flames that remained after Xiao Yan's celestial fire lotus exploded on his Ruthless Emperor's battle robe. However, they didn't dissipate and floated in the air. At that moment, These flames suddenly leaped together and joined together, transforming into a raging sea of fire. The fire lotuses that had exploded suddenly strangely gathered together, transforming into tricolored fire lotuses that were clearly separated. The nether evil blaze, mysterious heavenly tribulation flame, and Nanmingli fire formed a fire lotus on one side, while the solar true fire, pure yang true fire, and Nanmingli fire formed a fire lotus on the other. The two fire lotuses formed a massive yin-yang taiji diagram that surrounded Marquis Jinghuan in the center. The next moment, yin and yang rotated, and an incomparably terrifying strength crushed down on Marquis Jinghuan like a giant grindstone. With Marquis Jinghuan at the center, the space shattered into nothingness and chaos. Only Marquis Jinghuan, who was protected by the ruthless Emperor battle armor, could barely hold on. However, he was trapped and unable to escape. All he could do was endure the terrifying power of the yin-yang array formed by the tricolored fire lotuses. Xiaoyan stood in the void and sneered. Although my array formation talent is not as good as second junior brother and sixth junior brother, don't forget who my master is. Today, I'll let you have a taste of my yin-yang burning heaven array. Let me remind you, this is my burning heaven cliffs protective array. The violent power continuously pressed down on Marquis Jinghuan, who was in the center of the fire array. The ruthless Emperor battle armor had already pushed its power to the limit, and the scarlet gold light stubbornly withstood the bombardment of the array's raging flames. Marquis Jinghuan grunted. I didn't expect you to change from your usual straightforward combat style. I have indeed miscalculated and fallen into your trap. However, I have the Emperor of Yu's battle armor to protect me. Even if I defend until the end of time, your array will not be able to break. Such a powerful array formation will definitely consume a lot of magic power. I want to see how long you, who hasn't even formed a nascent soul, can last. Xiaoyan sneered. Until the end of time? Which idiot has the patience to waste time with you? Finishing, his hands stretched out in front of him. Pure yang true fire, extreme yang true fire, nether evil emperor fire, Nanmingli fire. The four great true fires appeared at the same time and gathered at the fingertips of Xiaoyan's hands. This time, it was much slower than when Xiaoyan had fused the three true fires to form the firmament fire lotus. Xiaoyan revealed a cautious expression. However, the incomparably violent power that seemed capable of destroying the heavens and earth was also much more terrifying than the three-colored fire lotus. Countless talisman seals and incantations were sent into the flames by Xiaoyan. After a long time, the violent flames suddenly calmed down. A three-layered lotus appeared between Xiaoyan's hands. The bottom layer was milky white, the middle layer was pure gold, and the top layer was blue and purple. The center of the lotus sparkled with golden light, and a red in a basket of stamens swayed. Seeing this, Marquis Jinghuan's face, which was covered by the ruthless emperor's battle armor, finally revealed a look of horror. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.